I just select? What is this? I need to rebuild the entirety of my everything for this. It's just...
Again?
Yeah.
I swear, you rebuild your office once a year.
It gets messy. Oh, good. Oh, goodness. All right. YouTube chat. Why aren't you YouTube chatting? There we go. Now it's working. Okay, we're good. Corvus, hello, hello, hello. Make sure my audio is working. There is no media player playing. Let's see if we can get that going. We can't open that because you don't have permission to... What? Great media player. Windows Media Player updated its media player, and now I can't listen to any of my music.
Oh, perfect.
Because now it's an app, I'm gonna guess. Let's see if this will work. No, that's not what I wanted you to do. Womp womp. Okay, well, great. Is Drew talking? I don't know.
Not yet. I am now.
Yeah,
Talkie.
I see you.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hey, Corvus. Yeah, no. I'm focusing today because I have not drawn since Friday, and I'm feeling rusty.
I would like to duplicate this, please. Oops, nope. Nope, cancel. Cancel. We're gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna stop futzing with stuff. Okay, welcome in. Elliot, Corvus, welcome in, welcome in. Do some stretches. Draw some rugbies. Good things going today. Ow.
You just kick some dumbbells?
Yep.
Ouch.
I'm alright. Ooh, green. That's not what I expected. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Hope everything was doing alright. I was thinking about making a rubber stamp so I could, like, stamp envelopes of, like, Patreon rewards and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my first instinct was like, yeah, build, like, a cool skull stamp. But then I was thinking maybe I should make a rugby stamp. Just plaster it all over everything. I think we'll give out what Patreon suggestions. It comes from the joint account. I mean, you could just get one a month, doesn't matter. I think last time I did that, I had like 2 people suggest things, so we'll see what happens this month. We have a lot of suggestions this week. I don't know what happened. We have like 30 something, so. A whole bunch of people had like pent up suggestions or something.
Maybe a bunch of people started new games.
That could be too.
I've got a bunch of cool new ideas for characters.
A bird mask stamp would be pretty sweet. That's a good point too. Dragon Turtle, welcome in. I haven't DM'd anything in a while, so I'm getting kind of antsy. Kevin's like 3-episode one shot turned into like 6 months of gameplay.
That does happen sometimes.
You guys were only supposed to be on the boat for like 2 episodes. It took us 3 months. So I think we're going to do that tonight. So hopefully we'll start catching up on that. I think Lars wanted to run a campaign after that, though, but I've not heard back from him yet. How things are going? Yeah, doing all right. Doing all right. Actually, no. Hold on a second. Hold on. Yeah.
Hey, Corvus.
Hi.
Okay. Excited. Hello, hello. Welcome in. I never know how to draw Rugby's mouth.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm gonna have to go look at some old, like, Leonin Vasquez drawings. Let's see how he drew. Welcome in.
Okay. Good.
See how he drew Gur. Haven't had a game yet that didn't take forever to do. Probably just the nature of tabletop RPGs. You don't gloss over a lot. Yeah, that's true. With a tablet pen? What?
I've had a one shot that I had 2 sentences of prep, like of story written for, turn into a 4-session game.
Yep.
Crazy.
I mean, the way we've been playing recently, like the serialized thing, it's really like encounters, like playing an encounter.
Yeah.
And so what I've discovered with shorts, or not shorts, but like one shots, is really that's like kind of the best way to do it. It's like playing 2 encounters, playing a very small encounter to let people like bond with their character, and then plan an actual encounter that they get to play. And then everything else in between is just, you just make it up. Just do whatever you want. Like that's where the one shot flavor comes in.
Yeah. What we're currently working on with the cave dive, I've wanted to do a lot more environmental storytelling, but it still ended up with Rookzer jumping in, or like getting bored jumping in. and drawing aggro for everything possible in the encounter.
You know, you have control over that, right?
Yeah.
I did, like, I remember one time I was playing a game that I wanted to be kind of silly, and that happened. Like, I wanted it to be paced a specific way, and I was like, I have a whole room full of cultists, like, just sitting doing something. So if they make any noise, like, that's going to pull them into the huge fight. But it's like, no, I really want them to be able to, like, go through it. And so I had to think of a way to, like, why wouldn't every single person in this dungeon just come flying out of these doors? And that kind of made me start thinking about, like, if you're in a room full of people and you hear a bump outside, one person's probably going to get up and check and see what it is. And everyone's going to be like, yeah, it's probably fine. Yep. And so unless you're like, you know, an alarm is sounded, I think that's kind of a fun way to do it too, is like you have to have a small interaction that might sound an alarm. You can also go through just like some groups of people might not care. Like, oh, someone's invading the castle. It's like, yeah, that's not my job. Like, that's not why I'm here. The guards will take care of that. So there's a lot of assumptions that I think kind of you can pull through instead of just throwing everything into combat, right?
Yeah.
And also
a sliding scale of alertness.
Yeah.
I will say there are 2 other maps adjacent to the one that we're in prepped, and all of the creatures on those maps are not going to come flooding in. But like Toji did poke their head into a cave where they were very clearly seen by guards, and also you guys are literally shining beacons of light.
That's true.
Entering a cave system that has, as far as you know, never seen light.
My eyes.
Anyway, so yeah, I am. After all of the encounters that we've had so far, I expected.
Okay.
I half expected for people to pull aggro. So I am prepared for that. More dinosaur noises.
Yep, more dinosaur noises.
That really did sound just like the newborn raptor in the first Jurassic Park.
Yep. That's the pooping noise. Bri, welcome in. Thank you for the membership. How are you today? I think I'm done with rugby. I think I'm ready to start drawing stuff. We do have a huge list today, so it might behoove me to pick up the pace. Let's get this a going. Let me get a poll started.
Let's kick this pig.
Yeah.
That's a reference to football, not an actual pig. People.
I was gonna ask. I know we've talked about it before, but I couldn't remember where the origin of that was.
Should specify before people think we're actually kicking a poor innocent pig over here.
I immediately went to like what's it called? Mutton busting? You know what mutton busting is?
No.
Okay.
Sounds like a euphemism.
Yep.
Nope. It's 100% legit.
Is it cow tipping but for sheep?
No, it's close. It's close. It's bull riding but for sheep.
Oh.
So like if you want, it's basically like bull riding for kids. Yeah.
I don't know. There's some sheep that are pretty big that could probably handle
Oh yeah. I mean
an average size human.
Yep, that was the Idaho thing at the rodeo. All like anyone, I think you were like under 10 or something, or under 12, you could ride a sheep instead.
I'm actually not sure if I would rather try to ride a bull or a bighorn sheep.
I don't know if it's a bighorn sheep. I think it's just a regular sheep.
I mean, I assume it's not actually a ram, probably just a regular sheep, but still.
A cook yelling at people to get out of the kitchen. Yeah, I've done that. I have done that. The other thing, like the fun thing to do, is just like if everybody's busy doing something, like no one wants to be interrupted. So like, yeah, they'll send tons of people out. If you're cooking, yeah, it's just like, get out of my kitchen. Like they're not going to try to murder you. They're just going to get you out of the kitchen. Dying, I think my mortality is running out. That's not good. That's not how immortality works. You get a refund. Unless you have one of those things where, like, every time you die, you lose a little bit of it.
Ooh.
Yeah, better consult the fine print on your on your contract with whatever eldritch being you are.
Thank you for the membership.
Whichever being is your sugar daddy.
I guess we could start with that. What were we gonna draw? Oh, it's mermaid. It's mermaids.
Mermaid.
Do you have a mermaid thing you would like me to draw? Mutton busters, yeah.
The new squadron of my sheep-mounted goblin cavalry.
Mm-hmm.
But the mutton busters.
Mutton busters, that's pretty good.
I like that.
It's supposed to be a contract. I mean, if they just gave it to you willy-nilly, then yeah, there's something wrong there. Never accept a gift.
Not from Fae, not from devils.
Or
not
accept
from
all
celestials
gifts
either.
and have them sorted out in the afterlife. Just the massive court days. Trying to figure out who has your soul.
You could also Monkey King it and just like Karen so hard that they take your name off the list. That's the other option.
Yeah, but Corvus, you're talking about the what's his name? The John Constantine from Marvel.
Yeah, Constantine.
Methodology. If everybody thinks they own my soul, then when I actually die,
no one owns it.
Yeah.
Let the demon lawyers figure it out.
Yep.
You lease it out for a year to different ones. Right? That weirdly exists. It's called a Grindylow.
It is called a Grindylow, yeah. You can definitely do that. Goblins are weird.
Timeshare soup.
What's that?
Timeshare soul.
Basically. I first got that idea from a little meme. Not really. It's a meme, but someone drew it of like when the Dragonborn finally dies, like who gets their soul, and it's just like all the Daedric princes just like fighting over everything.
That's essentially the the premise to the Dresden books.
Mm.
What happens if a wizard sells his soul to everybody?
Ultimate power?
Kind of.
Headaches?
A little bit. Both, yeah.
A lot of responsibility he finds he doesn't actually want.
Yeah.
Although he didn't sell his soul to Queen Mab, his fairy godmother did. So.
That doesn't matter.
I know. I'm like, in terms of ownership, it doesn't really matter. I'm just saying that was a contract he has to honor, but did not ask for.
There's an interesting conundrum of like timeline when your mother technically owns your soul.
That's awfully close to something political.
I'm just saying. Many people have traded their children for unlimited power.
And money.
Yep. yarn, golden yarn. If your whole shebang is that someone has to know your name to like depower you, why would you ever say your own name? Like that's just stupid.
Well, kind of the point, they generally don't. That's the whole like bit about true name stuff.
Nah. Rumpelstiltskin is just a really weird story.
Yeah.
But it is a fairy tale, so they are generally just wackiness.
Most demons should be named D's. Why though? I don't understand. Love the Skullbird avatar. They're very cute. Thank you. Not sure Harry counts for that. He only belongs to a Winter Fae. No other entities IRL because someone. Well, I mean, there's some other things going on there, but I don't want to spoil too much of it.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Because there's the original bargain, the secondary bargain, the tertiary bargain, the fated nature of it, as well as like Thomas's portion of it, and then what he does for his brother Thomas. Like there's a lot in that book where Dresden just kind of very skirts the legality of things. The Dresden books are still ongoing. There's supposed to be 2 or 3 more. I think he has a finite number that he wants to get through. We say in book 2 that the demons wanted his true name as a price. I mean, all demons want a true name as his price. I don't think
he gave it though.
Yeah, he's given out pieces of his name. One of the demons wanted, like, he gave him, what is this, like, Harry Copperfield something Dresden? Houdini, yeah. Okay, there's our little fishy goblin. We'll put him down here in the corner. Mew. Made him a little flounder. I should have put both of his eyes on the same side. That would have been really funny. Thank you, Bri, for the membership subscriptions. Everybody, please enjoy those. Enjoy your emotes. We really got to figure out something else to add to the membership thing. Oh, fussy baby. Uh-oh. All right. I'm going to roll some dice. So the way this works for people who have not in here before, maybe that's why they have titles and stuff. Kind of, yeah. True names is kind of an interesting thing because it's not just like what you're called, but like how you say it in the Dresden books, which I really dig.
Yeah.
Not baby owlbear emote. Yeah, we could do that. I should work on that. I should work on that tiny owlbear. For those of you that don't understand what we're doing, I have a list of all the things suggested on the Monday community post. I'm going to roll some dice. I'm going to draw whatever is rolled, and we're just going to go from there. So I have currently a lot. It's 34. So if I roll a 35, I'll do number 1. And if I roll above that, I'll reroll. So 12. No, that's 11. Math is bad. Legend of Dragoon-style Paladin, either half-elf or Aasimar Golden Hair runes. I dig it. Okay.
I'll roll whenever you're sure you've got that down.
I'm essentially, I'm going to say this is a Dragoon-style Aasimar Paladin. Rune Knight. Let's do a Rune Knight. I'm ready. Go ahead.
Sounds good. Okay. Damn, math rocks. 23.
23.
Add the numbers.
Lizard folk metal kineticist who is an occult librarian. This says living in the 17th century as a middle class, so that's, I assume, clothing description?
Yeah.
17th century metal kineticist librarian lizard folk. Oh boy.
That'll be 1600s. And just imagine like the really long wigs that the French had.
You kind of need a geographical region as well. But
Yeah.
if I assume northwestern Europe, then that gets me close. It is basically
This is going to be a really weird question that might piss some people off. Is fashion a new thing?
no.
Like
So
if I said Mayan fashion, is there a difference, like large scale wise, from 500 years ago to now, as there is between like French fashion, or is the speed at which European fashion changes just the weird bonkers thing that it's so different throughout time? Because like same thing with like Japan,
Yes.
like
and
feudal.
no. The problem with Mayan fashion specifically would be that we don't have the records
Okay.
to observe those changes.
Okay, no one can hear you on the thing. I don't think so. So not having the records to distinguish them, that's a good point. That's a good point. But I was thinking the same thing with like Japan, because I don't know about super ancient Japan, but like I think a lot of the things I will think about with like Japanese fashion is like feudal Japan, and that's still around. Like that somewhat style is still around, but it's
in that case.
You can't hear? Okay, cool.
In Japan, the reason like Japanese fashion never changed as much as it did, at least from the feudal period on until like 1800s, is because Japan was closed off to the world, violently closed off to the world.
Okay.
Like Japanese people were not allowed to leave. No foreigner was allowed to come in.
And
Only foreign trade was like on a tiny man-made island, like 2 miles off Japan. And that was it.
And there were fashion changes in feudal Japan, like within
Just very
themselves,
subtle.
but it would be subtle things that you'd have to be a historian to notice. But I would argue the same thing happens like within the 1700s century. Historians would be like, oh, this is obviously a 1730s thing because of this XYZ thing. So I think that we just don't notice it.
Okay, because like,
Yeah.
maybe
More
It is-
comes. Go ahead.
It is my understanding that fashion always changes relatively organically. There was kind of an explosion of fashion in like starting in about the 14th century in Europe, and I think France really got ahead of that. But I believe that was mostly because of the introduction of trade routes. So there was a lot more different countries trading with each other a lot more, and I think that was because sea routes were being established and large ships were being made.
Okay. Yeah, Dragon Turtle says it's kind of based on the speed at which fashion changes, more based on the speed of communication. Looking at trade routes and stuff. Okay, that makes sense. I think that makes more sense.
So China, Corvus is right. Japan is kind of a difficult example because they were so like intentionally isolated. If you look at Chinese and Korean fashion, it changes hugely. Like it changes just as fast as Western European fashion, as long as the Silk Road is a major trade hub.
It's like another. I think when it comes to understanding like visual language, it's like the things we think about when we talk about things. So like if you said Vikings, like that's a stereotypical thing that can pop into your head. And like you still have things like with Swedish or German designs. There's kind of a like maybe it's more of what I'm thinking about might be like traditional garments from those areas, right? Like
a traditional costume.
Yeah, like a traditional costume. And so those are the things that have transcended and are still around that I'm thinking about. Kind of the same thing with like a kimono. Like And so maybe it's less that since I'm not a historian, I don't know any of the other references. I just only know the references that have the staying power that they are still somewhat relevant as traditional garb.
Right.
So that might be more what I'm thinking of. Whereas I'm more versed with European clothing through time because of all of like historical fictions and stuff that are very popular. You know? So that would make sense.
Yeah. There is definitely like regional stereotypes, but those are, as far as I can tell, and I'm not an anthropologist, so everybody take this with a grain of salt. But as far as I understand it, like everything that we think of as stereotypical of any culture, even within that culture, we're talking about a snapshot of a thing that was very small, and it's usually either like the good old days, air quotes, of like a golden age, or it is representative of a colonial idea that existed when colonialism hit a location. But it is always a snapshot of a relatively narrow point in time.
Oh boy.
But I was also going to ask, do you mean like fashion, or do you mean like high fashion? Because high fashion is just installation art that people wear for a runway, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more of like traditional, like actual clothing people wear. Because like, think about 1500s, not 1500s, like 1800s here, 1850s. It's like long johns and overalls.
Yeah.
Versus jeans. Like jeans were a big shift. Versus petticoats, versus, that's more of what I'm talking about.
Jeans actually are not that large of a shift.
Well, I mean, denim is one, like mass-produced jeans. Yeah, were a pretty big American innovation from just slacks.
But fundamentally, they're not that different from canvas work clothes. Is kind of what I mean specifically. It's still a durable material. Yes, it's a new material, but like
just gonna walk away. I'm just gonna walk away.
All right.
I think the
you not agree?
It doesn't matter. I don't care. Like, that wasn't the main purpose. So I don't know enough about this to actually have a conversation about it.
Okay.
So I have no idea.
I'll drop it.
People are not wearing no, you guys, it's fine. It's a fine conversation. I just don't have anything to add to it.
I said corduroy. People are not walking around wearing corduroy as much as they used to.
Like, that's the big shift I was talking about. Was just like clothes in general changed with the introduction of jeans.
I personally think it was the Industrial Revolution that changed the way we dress the most.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably more what I'm talking about with jeans. Is like all of a sudden you have a very highly durable, mass-produced thing that people can afford to not have to repair indefinitely. It's not something your mom's not making you your own pair of jeans. It's just like, oh, I can just buy a new pair of these. Holy crap, and they last forever. Like, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And those have been around for a long time now because of it.
And they're fairly fire resistant because of the indigo.
Traditional clothing is usually tied to remembering something. That's fair. I didn't think about it that way.
Because there's a trend in both China and in South Korea of wearing like traditional costumes of certain time periods. So in South Korea, it's the Hanbok of the Joseon period, which is like the last imperial part of Korea before like Japan invaded. And so it is very standardized in terms of how it looks.
Yeah.
And just like in terms of just shape. And in China you have like Hanfu, which generally are more fantasized versions of them than very traditional ones.
Interesting.
Yep. Because there's a big trend of, at least for a while, of historical dramas, and sometimes they would take a certain style of dress from a certain dynasty and kind of modernize it by like lightening it up, because they were generally pretty heavy outfits. Because the silk that was made in China was very thick brocade, and thus fairly heavy.
Now, I thought brocade was just like the form of like embroidery. Is it an actual type of fabric?
Yeah. Brocade. Yeah. Brocade is a specific style of weaving.
Yeah.
Okay.
But generally involving like patterns woven into it. So
yeah.
So it's more the cloth instead of the patterns themselves. That's what I always thought it was, the patterns.
Yeah.
Like brocade's the cloth, embroidery is like the embellishments that kind of go on.
Just really
so
cool down
like
since the last time I was here.
Brocade cloth and have embroidery on top of it.
You can embroider in anything.
Yeah, because I thought you could also have like brocade silks, but maybe not. Or is it just that it is a woven silk? So I don't know.
To Google.
Yeah, as an anthropology major, this sounds about right. Often a particular region, like how the aesthetic style we think of in Mexico is one provenance, as all of America is now New Yorkers. Okay, that's fair. That's a fair way to look at it.
So brocade is any fabric woven with a raised pattern.
With a raised pattern. Okay, got it.
It's typically with gold or silver thread.
So it is kind of an embroidered cloth.
Well, no, because embroidery is where you take a flat uniform piece of cloth and you
stitch something on it.
Stitch something onto it. With brocade, the pattern is woven in. It's inherent in the cloth.
In the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
And so it's like sculptural cloth. It's woven to be 3-dimensional.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Bonkers.
And that's very heavy.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, so like unfortunately, like if we are going to get into fashion and material, French design has a huge impact on that, and that means that you have to be really, really, really precise with the definitions of everything you're talking about, because being even slightly off means you're talking about something completely different.
Yeah, I hate the pedanticism around specifically like historical fashion, because it is so precise.
Yeah.
Which is why I got so exasperated when it's just like, and here we go.
Yep.
Excuse me, that did not exist in that part of France at that time. It's like, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. I also get like that, because there's like, especially when it comes to like European fashion between like late 1700s and like and early 1800s, it's practically the same. And it's just like, the only difference is you generally lose the wig.
There are some differences in silhouette as well, but like it doesn't works right. It doesn't matter.
Which is generally why I just don't draw period pieces. When people are like, "I wanted this," it's like I'm gonna just vaguely gloss into that, and then I'm gonna make up everything I can. And part of it is like I just don't focus on fashion at all, which I think is actually bad. Like I need to do clothes studies. But the other part about it with fantasy is like there's no discernible time that fantasy exists as a genre.
Yeah.
Vaguely, like even medieval, right? That's not even quite right for D&D per se.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, it's
Like which medieval
yeah.
and where?
This is something very interesting. Like I follow a couple of costume channels as well, and they actually there's a channel, Bernadette Banner, that I really like, and she talks about, or she's done a couple of things where she and a couple of other dress historians have like reviewed the historical accuracy of costumes and clothing in popular media, and they have like they've talked a couple of times about how well, like one of the things that differentiated the classes was accessibility to the fashion. So people who had the most money probably were up to date with fashion, but it was not uncommon for people to be 20 to 40 years behind.
That's fair too.
Even more. So like even if we do, even when people do get as pedantic about genre, about time period as I did when I actually did, it's like there's more leeway than the most exacting people want to give.
I'm also I'm a utilitarian.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like
guessed?
so when it comes to like a lot of that kind of stuff, like I think a lot of people like old fashions because they look pretty. Like it is very much just the stylistic
Yeah.
aesthetics of it.
Holy
And-
shit, these are the coolest boots I've ever seen. Sorry, go ahead.
And especially when it comes down to like costume design, because people just go for whatever looks the coolest, right? Like, and that's the big thing about steampunk is for me that it drives me crazy because it just feels like a hodgepodge of cool ideas that don't always match.
Yeah.
It's like, I designed a cool hat. I found this cool glove. I found this great. It's like, make a costume, please. Like, but at the end of the day, I really enjoy functional things, which are usually not cool looking. Which is why I love things like really, really basic belts and like pouches and bags and like that kind of stuff. I always love looking at those kind of things without making them too just overly decorative, if that makes sense. Like I like more little things because it feels like they're usable instead of just like one very elaborate thing. But they do look cool. Those do look cool. So like that's like one thing with brocade. It's just like it looks really, really neat. But I'm not really ever been good at designing it that way because my brain doesn't think like that. Let's paint a picture on this picture. It's like, oh god, it's incepting itself.
That's why you make a little brush and just go over it.
Yeah.
Take time, draw out your pattern, and then
Stamp.
go over it. Yep.
I think it's very funny that I actually know and care so much about this, considering how much I hate to wear clothes IRL and hate to draw clothes and hate fast fashion and what the industrialization of cotton has done to the world in terms of ecological problems. Yeah,
I think that's something that you can't
Monoculture
really.
bad?
Yeah, that's fair. But like alternatively, like we could be looking at more things like rayon. Is that the right thing?
ugh, yeah.
Things like rayon, silk. We could have a huge silk trade. That's just like the problem is scale. It's not that we're like really like, oh, we started making too much cotton. It's like we just needed a lot of something. And like that's the problem with polyesters and things like using so much plastic is just oil. So it's like there's a whole bunch of issues with trying to clothe as many people out there. And that's why fast fashion is worse because it exacerbates that issue.
Yeah.
It's just like we make too much clothes.
Yeah.
So
And then we throw it away, and none of it's
throw it away.
biodegradable
Yep.
because it's all made of oil.
Yep. Or we send it over to poor West African countries.
Unicorn is the most is most. Wait, what? Hold on a second. Unicorn is. It's mostly. Is that somebody's name who was talking? Unicorn with a flare gun. Okay, sorry. Yes. Just make a Starfleet uniform, Air Force uniform, Stargate, all sort of clothes as long as they're near blue police box. I mean, yeah. Star Trek has a really weird history with making interesting uniforms that kind of don't get talked about much. How do you feel about Poor Things? Haven't seen it yet. I don't know yet. Yeah. If you are wanting to stay accurate, the best to go with older items. It's mostly because gunpowder means a big step forward in technology for a setting, and I'm guessing some people just like to keep their ideas reference really to them. I mean, I assume Unicorn asked about guns or something. Yeah. How do people not like guns in D&D? Is a portable fireball? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it is. Like that's kind of the thing. Like I think guns are great for D&D because they add an element of like weirdness to it. But I feel like 5e specifically kind of it's essentially just a crossbow. They made it just a crossbow, and so it's not interesting to me anymore. 3.5 and Pathfinder's gun systems were much cooler.
Well, 1e Pathfinder.
Yeah. 2e made it a crossbow gun. So
yep.
Whatever.
For game balance, though, as much as I agree with you that it's less interesting, for game balance, I appreciate it more.
Sure.
As a GM. Although I do miss first edition Pathfinder's dragon pistols.
For asking about Poor Things for steampunk as far as the most important aspect of the story. I hate almost all things steampunk. So, I don't know. I'll still watch Poor Things. I just haven't seen it yet, so I'll have to defer. As long as clothing... Sorry.
Ahead,
as long as the clothing's been invented already, it could also be that they're fashion. Some people have been accidentally ahead of fashion a lot of times. I mean, whales have fashion now. They wear jellyfish on their heads. That's kind of interesting. So, who knows? Why make it associated with magic at all? Technology shouldn't either be unique. Yeah, the thing with technology versus magic is it's technically all the same, especially when you're talking about games. Basically, you just need to fit it into a mechanical, like something that mechanically works with the game setting. So, yeah, I think guns make a lot more sense as a crossbow than they do as a fireball, for sure. But you can have magic attached to any of those to have them be explosive arrows, explosive bullets, unlimited ammo, laser guns. Like, if you do want to make it something like a laser gun, then it would make sense to have it follow the, like, firebolt type of magic. Same thing with, you could do firebolt or eldritch blast as a gun mechanic because you already have the basis for leveling that up. And then it just becomes what's the qualifier for consuming ammunition. Because, like, with arrows, you can recover arrows, but if a bullet can't be recovered, then the bullet inherently needs to be slightly more powerful in some way to the arrow, or the arrow is always going to be better. So that's just like that's game balancing in a nutshell, trying to figure those things out. 5e decided to nerf the bullets and make them comparable to arrows. So
I really like alchemy to bridge that technology gap, the technology magic gap, because I mean, there's kind of a historical precedent for that, right? Like, alchemists did exist IRL, and they were using chemistry, but they thought that they were using. I don't know if they thought for sure it was like magic, or they were discovering the secrets of God's methodology for creating the universe. But like, it was filled with mysticism, right? So there's absolutely space there for that.
There's that's an interesting point. Like, an interesting way to think about it is like the intent of the people doing it. I think there was more of a necessity for it to seem like mysticism, especially when like getting funding. Because if it's just like, oh yeah, literally anybody can do this, people wouldn't be throwing money at specific people to try to do this thing, right? Like, so I think a lot of alchemy, like a lot of the chemistry was happening, but alchemy is the way that it was sold and funded to learn chemistry, which is kind of a weird way to look at it.
But I mean, totally something I can exploit for my game system.
Sure. Yeah.
And also thinking of alchemy in like couching it in terms of chemistry also helps me like understand
Yeah.
the ideas of formulas and how it might function more easily.
Counterspell this, you casual. You could say the same thing about a crossbow, though. Like, that's what I'm getting at.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Can't counterspell a crossbow. I was like, oh. 5e guns are a lot better than bows and crossbows, though. An unlimited pistol hits as hard as a great sword and can be dual wielded. So that's assuming that you are building a modern firearm. Like, that's one thing, which in Pathfinder totally exists. Like, modern firearms are part of the game. It's in there. You have Starfinder. There's also laser guns and a whole bunch of other crazy stuff. So so that aside, that can exist. That's 100% true, and that's why in Pathfinder 1 First Edition, they had touch AC, and some spells dealt with touch AC because it's like if a lightning bolt touches your elbow, it doesn't matter where you get hit with it. You got hit by it. You take the damage. So it's the same thing with the bullets. It's like bullets don't care about armor because there was no modern armor to negate the pistols. Or the guns in general, so it just the guns just went through the armor, and there was a spell called light. No, is it a bright weapon? That basically did the same thing. So they added an entirely new mechanic called touch AC, which was essentially just your base AC plus your dexterity, your ability to dodge. So touch AC was essentially dodging. They added that to the game, and it made guns really fun to me. But it just added complexity that, who knows. So now everybody has the ability to dodge, and it's just part of your AC, which it was kind of already was, and that's why the touch AC was kind of superfluous. It was extra. You didn't really need it because everybody's already dodging. So once again, if you look at hit points as the ability to keep fighting, it's hard to dodge bullets. But if you ever actually get hit, it's usually the thing that kills you. So, yeah. How do you feel about buying property in D&D? Like, I want to buy people's houses out of kindness of my heart, but then when I'm mad at the NPC, take their homes. I mean, you can do that. It's just something you need to watch for. Like, to be fair, anyone could become a doctor. We still pay them well. What? I'm confused about that one. As for the houses, I don't have a problem with owning houses. Like, giving people houses, making them like dukes of lands, whatever the hell you want to call it. Like, all that stuff is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It just adds another layer of complexity to your game because then they have to manage it.
I think of it as is it setting appropriate? I'll absolutely do it at my table if it's setting appropriate. And you as the GM, if you're allowing it, you just need to be aware that that's the thing that you're going to have to keep track of. And you're going to have to make sure that your players keep track of it, because like if you do not require your players to keep track of their shit, they won't. They just won't.
We had an issue when we were looking at Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because for me, as an alchemist, to rent a business to have an alchemy shop cost more than I could make in a month. Like, I would have to spend all my time crafting alchemy just to pay for it. And it's like, something wrong with that. Like, there's no time for adventuring.
This was at level 5 as well. It's not at level 1. It was level 5 still.
So there's definitely something weird about that. In my mind, most adventurers live in inns, which means that they have more money than an average person. Like,
or they should.
They should, yeah. Just makes guns do a d6 plus 1 hit dice for the target. I mean, that's kind of what they do now, isn't it? I think the Pathfinder 2nd Edition has the deadly critical, which I think is really smart. Because in my mind, like, a critical is you hitting somebody. Like whether or not it kills them, like, a critical means that you actually hit them. And so I like the idea that, like, guns do more damage when they critical, because it's not just you, like, having to avoid them and dodge them, which tires you out. Like, you get clipped, you take a flesh wound, take a graze. That sucks. So, like, I like that idea. In 5e, yeah, they're just crossbows. You just have to think of them like crossbows. You can reload every 5 bullets instead of every 1 bullet. That's how I like to look at them too. Well, you have repeating crossbows. It's like, yeah, and there's no difference. Just do that. There's actually something my uncles used to tell me all the time is that they decided to use bows instead of, or they decided to use guns instead of bows during the Civil War because it was more civilized, because it wouldn't kill as many people. Because if everybody was using bows, then everybody would have been way more accurate and more deadly. The guns just kind of sucked at the time. So I don't know if that's true, but it's fun to think about. Bows are just as deadly as guns. Just
Yep. Just higher skill threshold and
more strength required.
yeah.
At what point level would you recommend having the party or character have property that they can maintain? I mean, level 1. You can start at level 1. When you think about stronghold matters. Like, so I've run a campaign where people basically, like, they just run an inn. And, like, adventures happen around them. Essentially, you just have to have somebody that's always there to run the shop for them so they don't have to deal with, like, stocking and, and actual, like, running, like... Moonlighter is a really cool game. And there's a couple other games like this, but essentially, like, you go out at night and you adventure in the dungeon and you kill monsters and you find monster parts, and then you take all those monster parts and during the day you put them in your shop and you try to sell them to people that come into your shop. And it's a really fun game, and I love that kind of idea and mechanic. The downside to it is that these are two different types of play. You have to have those two different types. So if this is what you want to do, 100%, you have to incorporate it into your game. Kevin the Necromancer did another one where he had a shop, and he basically, like, his players had a shop. He gave them a shop. And the idea was that they hired somebody to sell stuff. So if they had items that they didn't want, instead of him just giving them gold, he would give them a whole bunch of magic items, and if they didn't want anything, they would just give it to the guy in their shop to sell. So that's more of a passive thing, and that works too. It works totally fine too. And then at the end of the month, it was just like, okay, so to keep the shop running this month, you have to pay X amount of gold. Whether or not you sold any items doesn't matter. You need this much gold, or the city is going to basically shut down your shop. So you can do a lot of stuff with that, and you can do a lot of really cool storytelling devices with it. And it depends on how involved your characters want to be. Because if your characters do not care about that and you make them do it, it will be the most boring shit they've ever played, and they'll be mad.
Yep. I cannot imagine Travis Willingham, for example, being willing to play that type of game.
Right.
So, like, if that's what you want to try, you have got to make sure that you, like, tell your players exactly what it is that you're planning on doing, and make sure that they're all down for it.
Yeah. Well, Legend, you said definitely a meme and not true. Guns were way better at that point. I don't know if they were, because one, like, the time it took to fire a musket, I think, like, at fastest, it was like 3 rounds per minute, 3 or 4 rounds per minute. That's very slow.
You had to clean the barrel after
Mm-hmm.
every fire, after every shot, because there could be smoldering gunpowder caught in the rifling, and then if you tried to pack down more gunpowder on top of it, it blew up in your face and killed you with shrapnel. Right.
So you have that to think about. Then you have weight to think about. Like, not even just like, and revolvers weren't that great either. Like,
No.
I think when did the Colt didn't come out till like very, very late towards,
I'm not sure.
I want to say Civil War? End of the Civil War? First revolver? When did the first revolver come out? Doesn't matter. Point being, like, rifling in bullets was not good. Like, the cost of getting a gun is massive compared to a bow. And so if we're saying, like, depending on the level of technology you want to put into that, based on, like, also accessibility for ammunition and gunpowder, like, all of those things seem really trivial when you can just go to, like, a store and buy a box of bullets, right? But like, without mass production, guns are expensive, heavy, and not as accurate as someone who could just, or easily to train and learn on, for someone else to just pick up a bow that literally everybody should have for hunting around that time. Like, if you're still doing a hunter and gathering system, if you're in a town, maybe not everybody has a bow, but like any small town is going to have people know how to make bows, craft bows.
Also, there was zero standardization, so you like maybe the best guns that were available were better than what Rook is representing, but like, what about the people who are not trained but are selling guns anyway? What about the people who are making guns and barely know how to? What about all of the guns made by apprentices who have zero ability, but they got called up to produce firearms anyway because the army needed guns? Like,
so there's a lot of things to look at, right? Like, it's just a ton of things to look at.
There's so much.
But taking that into account, taking all those things into account, one person as a character having a gun or knowing how to make their own bullets and whatnot, like, in my mind, just because it has all those negatives doesn't mean it's better than a bow. And so it really depends. Like, if you're using, like, an AK-47 versus a short bow, I think the AK-47 probably wins.
Yeah.
Like, hands down. But, like, there's a huge leap between those two things. So it depends. It really depends on what you're talking about. Not to mention replacement parts, the cost it would replace a blown up crack. Yeah, that was the cool thing about first edition as well. If in first edition you rolled a natural 1, your gun jammed. And if you didn't clear it and fix it, like, which took a whole round to do, you couldn't fire it. And then if you got another natural 1 trying to do that, it broke. It just straight up broke and you just couldn't use it, period. So, like, and that's the older systems. The newer firearms in the game system didn't have that problem as well. They had a higher chance to, or a lower chance to break and stuff. You also need less strength and training to use a gun. But that's not true with older guns, especially the older muskets. Like, you need a lot more training and a lot more strength to be able to use them effectively. People had guns for hunting at that point, and why the Confederates were so good at shots, a lot of them had to hunt to eat. Interesting. We'll have to agree to disagree on that, but like, it is what it is, right? So,
yep.
It depends on what you're talking about, depends on what you're looking at, depends on where and what you want to use for it.
Yeah. I think that the thing we're arguing about, which was the statement that Rook's uncles made.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was, like, to some degree hyperbole, but it could also be fairly close to an accurate representation of the truth. It's just, like, none of us have degrees in this. We can sit here and argue and suppose all we want. None of us actually know. Unless you, in the comments, tell me, do you have a degree in anthropology focusing on this period of time in the U.S. history?
The reason guns replaced bows is because you could give any schmuck a gun.
Yeah, and that's the same reason crossbows replaced bows. It's also
this actually has an opposite take on it. I'm just looking at different things online. Longbows are much faster and more accurate than gunpowder weapons, but are harder to use because they require more training. Who knows? What were the prompts again? I'm done with this one. This was a Dragoon, half-elf Aasimar. I gave them a little halo, and we got a little sidetracked there.
Yep, and mine was a lizard folk metal kineticist in 17th century middle class sort of fashion.
Yeah.
And I did not bother with any of the metal bending shit.
Just put some floating rocks around them or something. I think the other part of that, the thing that makes the most importance in game for deciding whether or not you want to do that is really, like, what's the benefit of use, right? And this falls back to my argument of, like, why is the trident a martial weapon and the spear not? They are mechanically exactly the same, but the trident is for some reason a martial weapon, and it drives me crazy. Why polearms were so common on medieval battlefields? They were also effective and very easy to teach peasants how to use. Archers and knights required vastly more training. Yeah, that's true too. Everyone romanticizes samurais with a sword, I think even them at the time, but they usually used bows, and Japan invented the way of the gun. Okay. Oh yeah, I guess that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Samurai were basically Japanese version of musketeers.
If anything, it's easier to hit with a trident, but it's also yeah. I mean, I think honestly, here's my take on it. Is like the trident should be a martial weapon because it is meant primarily for like one-on-one fighting. Like it's something you have to train specifically to use, but if you are trained in using it, you should be able to pin, trip, or like disarm or grapple with it, right? Like there are specific ways to use a trident that a spear cannot be used for. And for some reason 5e is just like, we don't need that stuff. It's like, but then why leave the martial thing on there? Like it's essentially just a spear. I don't get it. I'm rolling dice. Here we go. 7. I'm rolling low today. A tiefling scribe wizard. She has a big hat reading her spell books. A tiefling scribes... I'm going to try to read this verbatim. A tiefling scribes wizard. She has a big hat reading her spell book. I'm not sure if this is... Does she scribe wizard spells onto her hat? Or does her hat read the spell book?
I think it's the scribe subclass.
Yeah.
Scribe wizard. So we're gonna erase that S. So a tiefling scribe wizard. She has a really big hat. I'm assuming there's a comma, and they want her reading her spell book.
That sounds appropriate.
I think that's what we're gonna go with. We're gonna go with that. Purple.
Yeah. The Order of Scribes.
Okay.
Wizard subclass.
Order of Scribes. That would make sense. Ideally, Trident should have some kind of pairing ability. Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like that's what's missing with the martial weapons is like an extra oomph of training, right? You don't feel the training. It's just like, sure, any schmuck could pick up a long sword, but like you should really get a benefit to being trained in it.
Yep, I agree. I'm ready to roll as well.
Go for it.
That's how I feel about the advanced weapons in Pathfinder 2e.
Yeah, like there's no reason for them to be advanced weapons if they don't have any extra abilities. It's just like, what's happening here?
10.
10.
Wow.
Big, scary, wereshark barbarian brawler.
All right.
So
Cooler.
apparently in 2e, the Trident only trait it has is that's one-handed and can be thrown 20 feet. That's it. And does a d8 of damage.
Oh, the spear does a d6, I think?
I think so. And I think the spear can be two-handed?
I know the spear can be thrown. I think there's a long spear and then there's a single-handed spear.
Yeah. That's how they've done it.
I'm not sure if it's still in 2e, but in 1e, one of my favorite weapons was a heavy spear, and it had a weighted end, so it was a versatile weapon. You could do piercing or bludgeoning with it. It was also a double weapon, so you could kind of quarterstaff with it.
Nice.
I think the closest to that would be the dueling spear, which has a weighted end.
Yeah, sounds about like the same thing.
Spears a d6, one-handed, d8 with two hands. Yeah, I like the versatile properties too. I think that's a good functionality. 3.5 in Pathfinder did strength and a half, which I also liked.
Yeah.
Because then it was more beneficial for stronger people to use two-handed weapons.
Yeah. But
it was a lot of math. People don't like math.
It was also like a good alternate build to the dual wielding thing, because basically the damage output was theoretically the same, right? Because you only got half damage on your offhand weapon.
Yeah, exactly. I understand it's based on how complicated the weapon is, but what would make a lot more heavy weapons simple? Probably. Only so much to do with two-handed hammers and axes. But that would make them. Yeah.
In 1E Pathfinder, there were certain weapons that you could treat their rank of martial or advanced or exotic, as they used at the time, changed if you could use it one-handed or two-handed. So if you use the certain, I think it was like a type of it was like the bastard sword. Two-handed is a martial weapon, but using it as a one-handed sword makes it an exotic weapon, which to me is kind of bonkers. But
Yeah, that's a little weird.
that's a bad example, but there are other examples where it's like it changes like how like because like anyone could like any like trained soldier could use this weapon like two-handed with ease.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a skilled master to like use it one-handed.
I think I kind of like that. I kind of like that idea. I think that would be a better system for all weapons, right? It's like this is what it does. This is what it does if you have different proficiencies. I think that makes more sense to me. Because they kind of started doing that with armor, right? It's like unless you reach these certain requirements, you have the shoot, what's it called? Penalties, like the armor check penalties. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is kind of what that is, because everybody gets the check penalty unless you're proficient with it, unless you have so much strength. Mm-hmm. So you could write the weapons also, like that.
Another thing I do like, despite all my gripes with 2E, is like the weapon critical specialization and like armor specialization stuff.
That was something about the exotic weapons in first edition, that a lot of the times the exotic weapons had like really high crit hit chances, or they had multiple effects, like they would have trip and grab, or trip and sunder. But there were very few of them, and it very much was like, take a feat and you can now use this cool weapon. And it's like, all right, that's
yeah.
If you ever tried,
I would argue it's even more difficult in 2E to even use an advanced weapon now, because it's just you either have to be a fighter or a gunslinger, and with a gunslinger, you're limited to only advanced firearms.
There's also, I think a lot of that is more heritage based. There's a handful of heritage things that give you access to those, like the elven weapons or the Kenrasu weapons, and those generally have, I would say they're a little more potent than the normal ones.
Yeah.
But not much. Like, especially like the Kenrasu shield, like it's essentially equivalent to a level 5 steel shield, but it doesn't upgrade after that. So it's just like, well, cool.
Yep. Can you not inscribe runes on your shield?
I think you can. Yeah.
I mean, with the new rules you can, because they actually added shield runes.
Yeah. Yeah. But the downside to it was, for a long time, that like I said, without that, you would buy a regular shield, and then you'd have to buy a better shield at level 5, and they just didn't have anything. They just didn't have anything that was that. So
it's very much like a money sink for the martial characters, like who use shields.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of to balance out the staff and wand thing.
Yeah,
because you essentially, like, you have a staff that works for a few levels, then you have to buy a better staff. So, which I think is something we really haven't played with enough yet.
No, definitely not. I think I might have played with it more than you guys, just outfitting my NPCs.
Yeah. He's supposed to be a tiefling, and I made her very buff. Hold on a second.
Tieflings can be beefy.
Yeah, but if you're a scribe wizard, you're probably not a beefy tiefling.
Fair. Tend to be rather bookish.
If you're not chronicling your workouts, you're not doing your workouts right.
Just like a muscle mommy tattoo scribe wizard. It's kind of what Finney's supposed to be, but
a balanced mind helps with a balanced body.
Yep. The Armstrong model.
Yep.
What kind of wizard are you? The buff kind.
Lose yourself in the valley between my pecs. Let my masculinity comfort you in your time of need.
Is that an Armstrong quote?
I
would
don't
not
know.
be
I'm just,
surprised.
It
I'm
sounds
just
like it.
making stuff up that I think sounds like.
I do
100%
vaguely
believe it.
remember when Edward is sick in the hospital. Not really sick, just beaten and brutalized by Scar.
Yeah.
He's like, I know what will make you feel better. Rips off his shirt and is like, a fine specimen of a man.
Yep.
It's like, thank you, Armstrong. Keep doing you.
You were designed for a very specific audience. And we love that for you.
Also, just generally like one of the nicest characters in the show.
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't get killed.
Thank goodness.
Surprisingly few people die in that series. Like, for how brutal the world is.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, but also every death that does happen, oh boy,
It's
do the
bad,
writers
yeah.
make it count.
Or like, there's a lot of like off-screen deaths. Like, I feel like there's not many on-screen deaths, but a lot of like off-screen deaths.
I just
Like,
want to... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
It's fine.
I
Go
have
ahead.
to point out, like, Scar is like, he's a cool character. I really dig his character, especially in Brotherhood. And like, he looks like this, right? They're just like, oh yeah, he's got a nice little cool X scar. They blew his face off. Like they literally like ignited his face, and he got off with just like, yeah, it's like.
He also lost both of spoilers. For anyone who's not seen Brotherhood, lost both of his arms and then transfused.
Somebody else's arms on him.
Yep. Yes, the person was a blood relative. That, yeah. It's
Scar is
excessive.
fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
not a bad character. I love him as a character. One of my favorite characters, but like they are not nice to him.
No.
Not nice to him at all. He gets the raw deal.
Yeah.
I love Brotherhood.
Many of
I
the
should
small
rewatch
ones get the raw deal.
that. Yeah. What was Wrath's power? Was he just real fast? Was that his whole jam?
He had an eye, which I don't know what the eye did.
Yeah, I never fully understood. He's just like, so yeah, everyone else is like, has these crazy superpowers, and he's like, I got a sword, and I'm really good with it. It's like, ugh, terrifying.
I think that was kind of like the point of it was like he was supposed to be the most like human-like of the homunculus
Okay.
because of he was meant to be the king.
So he just had general, better human stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I could buy that.
Like, I mean, he is a super soldier. He was like
Yeah.
engineered to be tough.
Oh, was he not one of the homunculuses?
Oh,
Maybe
he
he
absolutely is.
Yeah, but he was born human first.
Gotcha.
And then became a homunculus later.
Okay, I don't remember that part.
Yeah.
Horns growing through the hat. Again, wonder if hat has buttonholes. That's what I would do. Yeah. Mustang's pretty good. Mustang is a beast. Oh no, it's raining. It's a Chad move, if ever there was one.
Okay, so did some googling. His eye, the ultimate eye, grants him extra sensory vision in his general surroundings. So it kind of gives him like,
Spidey sense.
yeah, spy sense, but also like slight precognition ability to like anticipate where people are going to attack him from.
Speaking of which, I will always put forth that Spider-Man is one of the most OP characters in the Marvel Universe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Iceman is my second, but Spider-Man is great. Spider-Man ripped off somebody's face with his sticky fingers once. So, yeah, just put that out
That's mortifying.
there. Yeah. There's been like 2 or 3 times when the writers are just like, what happens if Spider-Man gets real mad? And I think at one point he kills Rhino, trying to remember whose face he rips off. I'm gonna look that up. I'm just gonna type in Spider-Man rips off face. No, he rips off his own face. That's not right. Oh, it was Osborn. He rips off Osborn's face.
I remember also, isn't there like a super brutal comic where I guess Parker gets discovered and ends up in prison with Kingpin, and then goes like no holds barred and absolutely beats the living shit out of Kingpin?
Yeah. Superman is on the same level of strength as the Hulk, which like doesn't sound right, but is. And you can see that if you play any of like the Ultimate X-Men games or anything, Spider-Man's strength is always maxed out, and the only people that have that I think is Colossus and Rogue might as well. She might be on that level. I'm not sure. Hulk, Colossus, Spider-Man, Juggernaut, I think. Yeah.
Juggernaut, bitch.
Juggernaut,
bitch. Spider-Man beat the dog water out of Kingpin. Held him up by his skin. Yeah. Yeah, it was bad. Super brutal comics. It feels like a GTA brand. Pride has Shadow Magic. Gluttony has Devouring Demon. Wraith has like a 26 dex score. Yeah, that's about what it feels like.
Yeah. With maxed out perception.
There's a meme where if Spider-Man ever introduces himself as Peter Parker, you need to run. That's good. Olivia Armstrong's my favorite. Just the beast of a woman. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. She was the first character to make me feel very strong things about powerful women. Take from that what you will, it's probably true.
Let's do that. Do that. Oddly enough, there's a lot of like very strong women in that show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But something about Armstrong. She's the best. Because like her and their teacher,
Azumi.
Is that her name, or is Azumi
Azumi Curtis?
I like her too. She's great.
I'm a housewife.
Yeah, she's not as cool. Not as cool. I still like her, but like, yeah. Armstrong is scary. And then who is Mustang's assistant?
Okay.
Yeah, Hawkeye.
Lisa Hawkeye. Yeah.
You know, I think that's the thing about Full Metal Alchemist. It's like there's just all the characters are great. It's like there's very few characters that you're just like you just hate them.
Yeah, it's so well written.
I'm like almost sad it's that well written because like it doesn't need any more story, but I really wish there was more story to it.
Yeah.
It's like, give me a sequel. It doesn't need a sequel, but I want a sequel.
I need to retry on this. I didn't like where that was going.
Build a commander.
Yeah, Commander looks really fun. It's essentially the you said the Cavalier, right?
Yeah. Just I feel like it is a more like their way of making a Cavalier like more generalized.
Yeah. The
And
problem,
so like instead of focusing on mounted combat, they're focusing on the whole banner aspect.
yes, which makes me happy because that was my complaint with the Cavalier. is like I did not care at all about having a mount. I just wanted more teamwork feats, and no one ever wants to take teamwork feats with you.
I know.
Yeah. Then you probably would love the commander then, because so you have every day you pick tactics.
Yep.
And it's implied that you do drill instructions with your quote unquote squad mates, as they're called.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you pick teamwork feats. Every day you pick teamwork feats that you want to work with certain people, and then you can use them on those people.
Yep.
Is my assumption.
And then there are and that's tactics, and then there are just generalized class feats where if they're in your banner's aura, which is a 30-foot emanation, which is huge.
I have to rebuild my tree folk now. I think I'm gonna make him a banner lord.
A banneret.
A banneret. I mean, that was the whole point of Tonk. Like, that was the whole thing I wanted to do with him. Like, he had or not Tonk. Ochre. Thank you. Tonk was the old character. Tonk was a necromantic war priest. And he punched things. That was his jam. He didn't understand how living people worked, but he understood how compost worked. So he would punch things to death and then raise their bodies to use them for stuff. Don't worry, if you die, I can
weirwood.
Yeah, he was a weirwood. So I wouldn't heal anybody as a battle priest, but I'd like raise dead and stuff with him, which is really fun. Good character.
Because there's there's different scales of tactics. So there's the first scale of tactics, basic tactics, is there's mountaineer training, where when you do drill instructions, drilling with your squad mates, and you have that tactic, they get bonuses to athletic rolls.
Super cool.
Scale.
Yeah, super cool.
Cliff faces.
But no, I wanted I forgot his Ochre. I wanted Ochre to have a big banner on his back, and just be that stalwart defender of the shield and flying a flag. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'll rebuild him as a commander. That would be a lot of fun. Mm. And then I could make him actually care about people again, because he'd give instruction instead of just standing off in the distance.
And he'll come back from being banished past the hell planes from when he died to with reprogramming.
Yep.
With empathy and understanding of human life.
There's one of the YouTubers whose name I can't remember, who always just reads D&D Reddit memes.
Oh.
He's putting out a bunch of shorts doing that now, which I think are great. But one of them was sending Gandalf back because he didn't finish his job, has really hard "can you come in on Sunday" vibes. Just we're gonna need you to come back in on Sunday. You're not done working yet, so just go ahead and come back to life. We're gonna give you a promotion, but you gotta come back in. You gotta come back in right now.
Right now.
Yep.
Also, the manager of this project has joined our rival team.
Yeah.
He was a corporate spy. Yeah,
poor Saruman.
Saruman. Yeah.
Who do you serve? Saruman. Sorry. Those ridiculous are funny.
It's one of my favorite. Yeah, it's my favorite dog meme right now. People slapping their black labs with the White House Saruman. Yeah. All right, I think I'm done with this.
Yeah, there's. I'm super interested in the commander. I've not looked at the Guardian. I'm not a big super tank person, but from what my brief glance over it seems like the tankiest tank that ever tanked.
Yeah, I mean
It's just like a lot of taunts.
the Bastion was really good. Like working with, I think the champion kind of was better, but the Bastion build for the fighter was pretty solid. So I feel like a combination of those two is going to be really good. So we'll see how it plays out, but those are still in playtest, right? So we're probably not going to see those for 6 months or so.
It just came out 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I don't think the classes will be released until next year.
Okay.
So. But there are feats all the way to level 20 for them. And
one of my players loves posting his videos in our group playlist. That's good. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Zach speaks giant? Maybe. A similar idea for a Druid Cavalier tag team. The Druid serves as a Cavalier's mount, helps avoid some of the silly mount rules in 5e if the DM is very rules as written guy. Yeah, I've looked at that too. There isn't really a lot of issue with it, because like a lot of the things that the Cavalier has are like the Paladin. There's a Paladin build in 5e that lets you have a mount. They're not that powerful because they're like, oh, I want to take this hit. It's like the hit's not going away. So if someone's transformed into a bear and you're riding them and you want to take the hit for them, it's fine. Like it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It really doesn't change the game at all. It's actually weaker because then you're missing out on your mount's attacks. But I think it's fun. I think I would totally let someone do that in a game. 100%. Ooh, what is 17 and 17? That's 34, which is higher than I have, so I have to roll again. Double 17s, that's pretty cool, though. 16 and a 2, 18. Just started playing a 4-armed Heron fighter, dual classing as a barbarian with a peg leg and an ear almost missing. How do you get a 4-armed Heron? That's kind of weird.
Alchemy?
Maybe, yeah, I guess so. We'll draw it. I was out for a walk yesterday, and there was this fat-ass rabbit just sitting on the side of the road. And there was a crow like a foot away from it staring at it. I'm like, is that crow going to eat that rabbit or ride it? I can't tell which is going to happen.
Oh, God. Well, that's funny that you say that because I sent you the animal companion that's basically a giant chipmunk.
Giant chipmunk. Go through what's up. How's it going? Blur. We're drawing some blue stuff now. Boom, 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 boom.
Did you struggle this much with a shark man when you did your goblin were shark?
No, I love drawing sharks. Street shark.
So do I.
Man, street shark. You didn't give him enough. You didn't give him enough top heavy.
We'll say the
His
earlier
shoulder
one
muscles are as big as his head.
I mean, his mouth is also as big as his head. Shark boy.
Love girl.
No, I did struggle a little bit. If you guys haven't watched the Wereshark video, go watch the Wereshark video. It's great. Goblin Wereshark.
It was very funny.
Nah, Mounted Paladin, not anymore. They scrapped it. What? That's still a thing. Isn't it?
You don't need, there isn't like a specific subclass for it. You can
just take summon speed. Summon speed.
Yeah.
I summon speed.
Summon Spectral Steed.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And take the Mounted Combat feat.
Yeah. Oh, is it the Mounted Combat feat the thing that lets you take damage for your mount?
So there's the Cavalier Fighter archetype that I think you can do that. I don't know if that's what the feat does.
You know what? I have a way to look it up.
Yeah, we all do. It's called Google.
No, I'm gonna look up the character that I was talking about. I am on my D&D Beyond. I can see how they do it.
Beyond.
Characters. Actually, I probably need to go to my campaigns. Do. Garth One Eye. It would not surprise me if Kevin the Necromancer let him use fighter's abilities. Pact Bond. Oh, interesting. Okay.
King Shark.
I don't care for that version of King Shark though.
Interesting. Why does he have Pact Bond? Is that a feat?
That sounds like the Warlock thing.
Yeah.
Because there are a few Warlock-based feats that other classes can take. Like, where you can get, like, Eldritch Evocations. Stuff like that, so...
So he does have mounted combat. And then it looks like, I'm guessing Kevin the Necromancer just gave him Pack Bond as like a bonus feat. Bonus feature.
Because he gave him a familiar.
Because he gave him a familiar, yeah. And those two combo kind of make that a functional build. Yeah, Rook did a Were Shark video. Yep, I did. Were videos? I did a lot of Were videos. I did the Goblin Were Shark video. We did the Shifter class.
Yep.
We did the Curses video.
You also kind of did, tendentially, like, the Were Gremlin Goblin thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the Gremlin video was also a cursed video, like a Were Curse video.
Yep.
So there's a whole bunch. We talk about Were creatures a lot on this channel.
Liminal
beings.
Yep.
Liminal beings.
It's all Brad's fault.
Yep. I would be happy for the last 5 seconds of my life. Wait, what? The dancing spear? Oh, because it would...
Oh, that was the, that was what, Drid earlier was talking about, like, the heavy spear.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of like probably the closest to the heavy spear that 2E has.
I totally forgot what I was supposed to be drawing this just now.
Oh, scheiße.
Let's just go back.
I don't remember either. Did you even roll?
I did.
Yeah. He rolled 34 first and then... It wasn't 34.
Four-armed herring gun, that's what it was.
Yep,
That's
four-armed
right.
herring gun.
Should I draw it as a Vieira is the question. Should we make it a sexy four-armed bunny?
That's up to you.
Yep. And how much do you want to push the
Yeah.
boundaries of the YouTube?
And a peg leg. It's got a peg leg.
Yep. And missing an ear. Or most of an ear.
What's the difference between a pierogi and a piroshki? Anything?
I think a pierogi is Polish and pierogi is Russian.
We wish there was a better player rules for lycanthropy in 5e. We either have shifters or I can control your character now. Yep. Those are your options. 5e is really lame when it comes to were creatures. Which is why I say use different rules.
Yep. Or if your table is okay with homebrew, the Order of the Lycan Blood Hunter.
Yeah, I think that works really well, actually. I've done that a few times. Really, I think the thing with lycanthropy is what people want out of were creatures is kind of broken.
Yeah, I agree.
And so having it just be a curse is all 5e has. Like they only have the negative side of it, and people get really mad about it. Because in 3.5 they had the templates for it, and it worked just fine. But you still, if you wanted the werewolf, flavor, you had to homebrew that anyways. So like, because otherwise, I mean, the easiest thing to do is just essentially give somebody the Berserker Barbarian feature, and then give them claw attacks. That's all you have to do. Those are the only two things you need, and you've built a werewolf.
Yep.
And just make sure that they use. Sometimes I really like forcing people to rage with it. I think that's the best part about it. That's how I usually roll the curse. It's like, oh, you just saw your friend get eviscerated. I want you to rage right now. Okay. Was this a brawler?
I
don't know if it had a class.
Mine, I don't know. Mine was a brawler.
Hers was a brawler.
I don't remember.
I think it just said four-armed Heron-gun, so I think it was a pirate. Isn't the Berserker rather underpowered compared to the others of like the non-bear totem paths? You can do bear totem, but the problem with bear totem is that like you don't have the opportunity of hitting your players. So doing the bear totem works as well. Like basically any barbarian class works fine for were creatures, including like if you want to do like a Storm Herald barbarian or something, that works too. You go into a rage and just explode, right? Like you explode and then you're an anime wolf monster. So really the reason that Berserker is so weak is because it has those negatives. It's like that's
Yep.
the thing, and that's the problem. If you want werewolves to really feel impactful, and you want to give them like very powerful things like extra attacks or pack tactics or things like that, you have to give them negatives. Otherwise, there's no reason not to just run around and get bitten by a were creature.
Yeah.
Like there's no downsides. Everyone should do it. So
Because like the thing that is only really weak about the Berserker is the fact that when you end your rage, you get a point of exhaustion.
yeah.
Which to me makes perfect sense if you're a were creature.
It's one of those things where it's flavorfully written really well and not optimally built for optimal play, optimal gameplay.
Yeah.
Because they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be built for optimal. If you want to run the meta, you're very welcome to. Not as fun in my mind.
Yeah, so I'm now looking at the Guardian.
Okay.
And it's just like Final Fantasy 14 tank character, like like Gladiator or Paladin. Is just level 1 you get shield block, intercept, strike, and taunt.
Nice. Okay. That's very close to the champion then. So I'm wondering what they're going to do with the champion.
Intercept, strike, you fling yourself in the way of an oncoming attack to protect an ally.
Do you take damage for it, or do you just reduce the damage?
You take the damage.
Okay, so that's how it's
save
different.
your ally.
That's how it's different than the paladin.
Yep. Though thanks to your armor, you gain resistance to all damage against the targeting damage equal to 2 plus your level.
Interesting. Okay. So the champion basically can just reduce the damage on a target by your level. So like that's interesting. So you're intercepting it instead of just negating it. But I guess you would still take the extra damage too. So that's kind of cool. I like that. It's different, but it's mechanically the same, but used in a different way. So I dig that.
Yeah, it also has to be physical damage, at least for this level 1 thing.
Yeah, the paladin, I think you negate the damage, just flat damage. So the champion still has some different benefits to it.
Yeah.
5e is really loose with class balancing. It makes it sort of frustrating when it's off enough to notice. Feel in game. Not even some specific multi-classes. Just you took the wrong class or subclass. Yeah, then that's always going to happen. 5e simplified things way too much for the min-maxers. Like, that's just always been a complaint from everybody I know that tries to min-max. They struggle with 5e because there's like only a handful of really optimal things to do. And that's because there's not a lot of options. There's only a handful of options. And you may seem like, well, there's tons of stuff to do in 5e. Yeah, there is, but like not compared to 3.5, not compared to Pathfinder, not compared to 2nd edition. like that.
Yeah.
There's 5e is very pared down. And so if you're struggling with
Also,
it, just go look at 3.5. That's the best thing to do, is just go look at a different system and pick things from it.
Another thing is 5e has like drastically less books than 3.5.
Yes.
Yeah.
3.5 was very third party inclusive as well. So like
Yeah.
there's so many 3.5 books out there.
Also, it is not going to be very long before 2nd edition Pathfinder has way more books than 5e as well. So.
Yeah.
No. It probably already does kind of like the adventure stuff.
Well, I mean, if
You
I
guys
don't know,
hear that?
no, baby making funny noises.
Yeah. Basically sounds like boo. But then always followed up with a
You just have a goat.
essentially,
now.
yeah.
See, here's what the taunt does. You choose a creature within 30 feet. The creature must make a will save against your class DC. Regardless of the result, it's immune to your taunt until the beginning of your next turn. Okay, I like that better than some of the things they do with that.
Interesting. Okay, so you only get one chance.
Like per round.
Yeah, one chance per round to taunt something. And then what happens if it succeeds? Is it...
So if the creature critically succeeds, unaffected by your taunt.
Mm-hmm.
If it succeeds until the beginning of your next turn, the creature gains a +2 circumstance bonus on attack rolls made against you and to its DC.
Interesting.
DCs of its effect.
So it makes it easier for you to get hit by it.
Yep, because you're taunting them.
Right.
But takes a -1 circumstance penalty on attack rolls and its DCs when taking hostile actions against anyone other than you.
Okay. So it's still into the DM to make those decisions, which I kind of like.
Yep.
I think that's smart. That's a good way to do taunt.
Yeah.
And then on a failure, the penalty is a -2, and on a critical failure, it's a -3.
Nice. That's really good.
So
I think that sliding scale is something they were missing in the original development of a lot of the characters, because a lot of the crits, like going from crit success to crit failure, it was like it works, it doesn't, it still doesn't, and it's just like, that's stupid. Like, what's going on? It should be like always succeed, and then like a critical failure is a failure, but with higher number variants. I think that feels much better. So one chance per creature? It should just be... Actually, yeah, it would be per creature, so you could taunt up to 3 people in a round. That's kind of cool,
because taunt is a single action.
Mm-hmm.
So if first you don't succeed, you can try another creature.
Yeah.
And then still at level 1, they have this thing called Threat Technique. Whenever you stop their worst attacks or strike them down after your allies, you know how to deal with targets of your taunts. So choose either Ferocious Vengeance or Mitigate Harm. Enemies that ignore your taunts take the blunt of your anger. You deal an additional 2 damage on your strikes against creatures affected by your taunt if they take a hostile action that doesn't include you as a target. So, if if you taunt a creature and they still ignore you and attack someone else, you get a damage buff against them. And said buff increases at 9th level and 16th. That probably will change.
Yeah.
And then mitigate harm. You gain resistance from critical hits made by a creature that's affected by your taunt. So if you get hit by a taunted creature and they critically hit you, you gain resistance to that crit. And it's 2 plus your half your level. It's very front loaded.
Yeah. I was looking for the Foundry. You sent me a link to a Foundry manifest for the playtest for that. And
Well, I sent you a post, like Twitter post
yeah,
about it.
They had they basically filled out. Some people on Twitter filled out that for the Foundry, but I was looking at it and it's like, this is not ever going to be updated again, so maybe don't put this in your normal game. And it's like, so yeah, I think I'll wait. But it's kind of interesting to look at. Because I want to play with it. I definitely want to play with it, but
because I know, like, we put in like the playtest for the Kinet Assist.
Yeah, and those, I think that might be a little more optimized, and I'm not sure though. So like, I'll have to look again, but I might want to see if whoever we got that from has one for it. I would use that because that seemed to work.
Ooh, this is larger than life, level 1 feet. When you're clad in your heaviest armor, you have an outsized presence.
Just like your armor's just real big.
Or it's just like your, I don't want to say natural charisma, but it's just like your aura of being imposing is much larger than you are. And so creatures that take disarm, grapple, and reposition, shove, or trip attacks against you while wearing heavy armor, you're treated as one size larger for the purpose.
Cool. Okay.
So
that's pretty brutal. That means that if you are a large-sized creature, a medium-sized creature needs Titan Grappler in order to even make that attempt.
So that's something. That's something about Pathfinder that I think. I don't want to say that you have done this, Druid. Like this isn't a directed like. This is not a thing of like, Druid, you need to do this more. This is just something I've noticed. I think with 2E, there are so many little things like that those need to be looked at in combat in game, right? Like there is no way a creature would. I mean, maybe they would think, oh, that guy just looks too big, I can't grapple him. But if they don't have that feat, they might still try, right? Like, and the DM knowing 100% it's just they're immune to it. I still think they should waste the action attempting it. And that I feel like that is something that kind of needs to be in the game because there's so many different weird ways of like immunity and resistances that from a meta standpoint, the DM can maneuver around. I think you're supposed to just eat it. Like I think as the DM, you're supposed to let those things happen naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. If we were talking about 5e, I would disagree, but because it's Pathfinder, I'm 100% like right there with you. I'm like, yeah, this is
right because in 5e, if you do that,
a much more brutal game.
It essentially wastes your whole turn. But like, having those kind of especially with a lot of the skill checks and stuff. Yeah, like with the Inquisitor Investigator, and then the Thaumaturge. Every single turn, you're spending one of your actions. You don't have to, but like for the most part, you're spending one of your actions to remove one of those kind of interactions. Just like, I need you to tell me if this guy can't be grappled so that someone else on my team doesn't waste their turn grappling them. So
that is literally what their class is built around.
Yeah, and so I feel like we as players, partially because like we all are a little too, we all read the books, we all like look at the stuff, we know too much, and so we're a little too meta to begin with, because then we go into a combat and we're just like, we kind of already know what's going on, and so that's why those characters feel so underwhelming, because it's like, I need to roll to learn a thing that I actually already know, and that feels shitty. And so it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I'd like to try a dodge tank, taunt the enemy to hit you, and then cast Sanctuary so they can't. Yeah, that's. I had a friend try to do that build, and he's always been very lackluster with taunt mechanics. So I kind of like this one, but there has been a handful of ways to make that work with paladins and stuff, because Sanctuary is really funny. Clerics are really funny with Sanctuary, but like getting that taunt is really, really important. And I don't know if it was the champion or maybe it was the druid. There are a handful of spells in Pathfinder that allow you to do that kind of stuff. Just like, not only you have to attack me, but like you can't attack anybody else. Like, you will get fucked up if you attack anybody else. And like Wrathful Strike, I think, is another one like that. That one's really cool. It's like, I'm gonna blast you with something.
Probably a few cleric spells that are like that, or divine spells. And
so with 5e, it's really tough, because if you're using your turn to taunt somebody, it's hard to also cast Sanctuary. Like, it's hard to get those two to stack. And so I think that's kind of the weird side to it. Like, having more thorns related abilities, or like retribution based abilities, and then taunting, I think is kind of like, those are fun builds. Those are really fun builds to do, and they're kind of hard to figure out.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, Booming Blade just always works better than all of those things. And so it's just like, I cast Booming Blade on you and then I kick you. So if you want to try to attack me, you have to take some damage. And it's like, all right. Like, that works, but it's not interesting. So Cavalier Fighters hits that makes the enemy have disadvantage versus anything but you. Sanctuary is a bonus action. Yeah, that would work.
Sanctuary, it's probably what, second level spell?
Sanctuary? Something like that. Yeah. It might be a first level spell, actually.
Maybe.
It might be different for paladins and clerics as well. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, Sanctuary is a great spell. I really like Sanctuary. The only problem with it is that, once again, like, you cast Sanctuary on somebody, and then the wolves are like, yeah, I'm just going to go attack the wizard. And it's just like, how would they know? How would they know that like, they can't attack that guy? That goes back to the same thing. It's just like, as a DM, sometimes you just gotta play stupid. Like, you just gotta do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like playing with like creatures, not like people.
It's the same thing with. I was just talking about this in my short for like, how do you play with less than optimal number of party members. And like, a big part of it to me has always been how your NPCs and your monsters interact with the players. Because if you have 10 goblins attacking 3 people, they're not all just going to gung-ho and stab the guy. You know, one of them is going to be like, I can fight these guys. And then everyone else is going to be like, yeah, we're going to watch. This is going to be great. And then that guy explodes, and they're like, oh, okay, maybe 3 or 4 of us should attack at once. Right? Like, so you can inherently build encounters in a way that they are dealing with the fact that you have a small party, right? They're used to seeing these large groups of caravans or large groups of knights, and so players are just going to act different when there are less people. I think that's just kind of inherently how you have to look at things, and I think it's kind of lost to a lot of DMs.
Which, to be honest, if we're being realistic here, like, most venturing parties, say like 4 or 5, that is a small group of people traveling a wide open area.
Yeah.
Like, easy pickings.
Yeah,
theoretically.
I mean, the way I always think about it is, like, if you have a group of bandits, that's probably 8 to 10 people, right? You have 2 scouts, you have a leader, you have 3 or 4 like just bruisers, yeah, and then maybe 1 or 2 people that aren't really good at fighting, but they just hang out at camp, right? Like groupies. Yeah. You have 2 or 3 groupies.
The groupies.
and that's a tough encounter if you just like walk up and get ambushed by 8 people.
Yeah.
But most likely the way you should have that work out is, do your players stumble upon their camp? Like, are you being so stealthy and sneaky that you just show up at camp where the only people that are at camp are the groupies and like 2 guys, because everyone else is off, doing something else, waiting to ambush somebody. Yeah. So it's like how you interact with that group is going to be totally different, right? So if you have 2 scouts, you have like the people who are taking care. This is going to be like a chef, right? It's like a chef and someone taking care of the horses, and then your 4 bruisers. Like, this is an encounter. You roll a die, and it's like, hey, there's someone watching you from the bushes. And then whether or not you can catch this guy before he runs off, and now maybe you're going to get this, right? They're going to go set up an ambush farther ahead. If you just completely miss this, that's what happens, right? That's a no-win situation. That's going to be the hardest it would be. But if you do this, and then you're using a high skill roll of a survival to like, hey, we found a path for horses, you go this way, now all of a sudden you're only dealing with these guys because these guys are going to ambush you. The other fun thing you can do is, like I said, like these guys are just out. Maybe they just looted somebody and they're just wandering around. So now you have the same thing, 2 options of entry, but with different levels of encounters. You can do this stuff on the fly. If you have a small party, maybe it's a smaller camp. If you have a huge party, maybe there's like they leave guards in camp and they have a whole bunch of people ready to ambush you. Right? So like you can adjust those things on the fly so easily, but you just have to put a little thought into it, kind of during the encounter. Like, not just, I built a cool encounter, let's run it. Start the encounter and then keep those things in mind depending on how your players interact with it. So if they're not looking for scouts, they're going to get jumped really hard. Yeah, give them a cool, hard encounter that is going to be a good ambush, right? That's a trap. That's going to be the hardest situation they can run into. But give them lots of opportunities to figure that out and weaken it up. So, yeah. It's interesting. MCDM's RPG is talking about using combat roles to define how groups of enemies attack. Yeah, that's old school like MMO design essentially. Like when your team has a tank, a healer, and then 2 DPS, usually a ranged and a melee. If you know that is your team makeup, you can build things directly to counter that. And not like, this is how I'm going to beat them. It's like, you need to give them options for like, okay, what is this person's job during a fight? Corralling. They can probably corral 3 melee people. This guy is a ranged person. He's either going to be taking out individual targets or AoE targets. This person is running interference for your healer, right? Now you can build an encounter that's going to be interesting because you know how the party is going to interact with it. And that's something you just have to learn with your players because they could all be different. But I also think that's why people get really distracted, or at least like they feel like they have to fit into those roles because that's the easiest for the DM. And so some DMs will be like, oh, we need a healer for this fight. It's because they already have things planned that would require that. And so that's just something like the more experienced your DM is, the more you can venture away from those things. Remember that Dissonant Whispers is within hearing range, not sight. Dissonant Whispers. Distractions, I guess. I'm not sure what you're talking about there, Cosmic. I'll have to double back on that. The bandit thing you mentioned about only some of the people being in the camp happens in Fallout 3 at the Super Duper Mart. Raiders are inside, but fewer more arrive once they're beaten. Yeah, exactly. Like you can break up how an encounter happens just to follow the flow of your party. They were breaking up things into stuff like artillery who soften people up and snipers that single person out. Yeah, that's another way to look at it. It's a great way to look at what's the word? Troop combat, I guess is the way to say it.
Platoon combat.
Yeah, they even have some rules for like squads. I think is what they call them. It might have been troops. I think it was troops. Where you essentially just fight large groups of people. So you stop fighting individual guys, and it's just like, okay, how would you fight a squad of knights? And then they have 3 or 4 different pieces, and you just have to. It's basically you're fighting swarms.
But not of insects.
But not of insects, yeah. Swarms of people, troops of people.
I know there are creatures, enemies in Pathfinder 2e that have like the troop trait.
That might be what I was looking at.
And I think that is really interesting.
Yeah.
Pull one up.
Because it's kind of the same thing of like, once so much damage has been dealt to the troop, they just disband. They're just like, fuck this, and they're like, right? They're not there to fight to the death, right? They're not there, and they're not interested in fighting to the last man standing. They're fighting as a unit, and as soon as the unit breaks apart, then they're done. And they're like, I'm out. I'm getting out of here. Like, I'm not dealing with these guys. Holy crap. That guy just bit that guy in half. Like, no one wants to deal with that.
But they also heal.
They can also heal, yeah. That was the other cool thing about it, because they have healers in their group. Like, they're not individualized units. They're just like, this group can heal as part of its action, because it has healers in the group. So, that's some pretty interesting little chunks and things to think about.
Yeah, that honestly reminds me very much about how I was thinking about the giants that you guys went and fought, and Cranberry Almond Crunch, just like
that was a fun fight.
It was a very funny fight to watch. So for chat's benefit, Rook's playing. He's got a bard Vine Leshy.
Yep.
Who starts himself on fire. And the Adventurers Guild sent them to deal with a party of giants that had taken over a mining camp. And it was very funny. Like
the thing about Cranberry Almond Crunch is he's a pacifist, but he's a pacifist out of necessity. Because I don't have the action economy to attack. So it's just like, on my turn, I'm going to be like, don't attack me, or you'll suffer the consequences. And then I buff the whole party. And then if somebody punches me, I explode. It's just like I tried to warn you. Like, I'm not here to do damage. I'm just here to cause chaos and make everyone else stronger.
Yeah. So it was really an excellent fight to play. Because I don't know, I felt like I managed to get the giants to actually feel like they were a team trying to work together, trying to figure out what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then because of the way you and everybody else was playing and how your like fire magic synergies were working together, like the giants could not, I was rolling private rolls on my table with my dice. The giants could not for the life of them figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of chaos in there.
Yeah. So they I just decided at one point, okay, the giants basically are fucked. They're totally ambushed. Weren't expecting any of this. So as far as they can tell, the weird dwarven fire gods have sent spirits to haunt them. So yeah, and only one of them got away.
Burning Plant Man is his name. Bong. No, it's not Dragon Turtle. One of the biggest things I think, like undead and golem armies, I suppose, no mortal to break. Yeah, and that's very important about undead is they're relentless, right? Like they're not gonna back off. They're gonna every turn they're gonna march forward and attack. And that's something I like to do with undead, especially, is I like them to swarm. So when I start them, I will start them all scattered, right? Like I like to feel like you wouldn't have a troop of skeletons marching in an order. Like, you might, but then as soon as you send them into the world, they're just going to start kind of like, meh, because they don't all walk quite the right way. Yeah. And they kind of shuffle and bounce around, and so they just kind of start going, and then as soon as they see something, now you have all these different points of interaction, and they're not going to, unless someone tells them to, they're not going to, like, this one might walk forward and attack once. This one might walk twice and just stop. Like, right? Like they're not interested in being optimal. They're just like priority one, attack thing. And that's all they care about. And I'm also of a mind that if like they're not going to be smart enough to really like, come around and flank somebody, they're all just going to try to take the shortest route, and they'll get plugged up here. They'll just like and kind of like try to shuffle past each other. Those kind of strategies can completely change the way an encounter works versus 8 skeleton soldiers that are just bloodthirsty for the mage, right? Like they're just like, we're just gonna kill the healer, just kill the healer, and the DM's gonna do that, and it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck for the party. So I'm done with this bunny boy. It's 1:30.
Yep.
I'm gonna get a drink and eat my pierogi thing, and I'll be back in like 2 minutes. So hang tight, everybody. And then we'll roll some dice and do some more drawings.
So, looking at the troop stuff in 2E, all troops are size gargantuan. And so that means they take up 16 squares.
Wow.
And when you take down chunks of their health, so at this level 8 creature called the Harvest Regiment, they're Earth or Wood Elementals, I mean. So when they reach the threshold of 90 hit points, you knock them down to 12 squares. At 45, it's 8 squares. And because they're all clustered up, they have a weakness to area attack damage and splash damage. And that also qualifies for all troop-based creatures.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. And there's also like troop movement where they basically can like have a special type of movement where they can't form up and condense into a move like 20 foot by 20 foot area. So yeah, if you want to have wars in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, use troops.
They've got the mechanics for it.
Yep. There's also siege weapons.
Yeah, I figured there would be very, very quickly.
Yep.
I mean, I've mentioned it before, but in 1st edition Pathfinder, there's a spell I always wanted to use as a eco-terrorist druid, which is siege of trees, I think. Basically, you turn trees into siege engines. They mine boulders with their roots, pull them to the surface, and then throw them like and deal damage like a catapult.
Last March of the Ants.
Exactly. Anyway, if that spell doesn't make it back onto the druid spell list,
disappointed.
No, I'll just port it. I think it's a 7th level spell in 1st edition Pathfinder, so I'll just add it back in. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
So Dragon Turtle says you could really make a lich scary by having him send Skeletal Horde at you, just like you've done before, but then assume direct control and they start acting smart. That's actually what I do. And the way I do that is that's what I use lair actions for. So basically at the top of every round, I'll direct something, right? Or on his turn, I'll buff up a creature to have it do something. Like, get that guy. And then, and then 1 or 2 of the zombies that aren't doing anything will direct, right? Drag, hello, welcome in. So that's exactly the right way to do it. Because that also gives you control of, like, if things are getting too difficult, you can change tact. You can be like, oh, go get me this thing, or whatever. You can shift people around instead of it just always being the most optimal thing. Like, guard that door, protect me, right? Like, you're pulling resources around theatrically and in story, like in media res, like in a way that makes sense and feels right. So the players aren't just like, oh, stop attacking them because they suck at playing the game. It's like that's not what you want to do. I always feel that like there's 2 things that suck, and it's getting knocked down with the first hit and knowing that a creature has 2 or 3 more hits left.
Oh god.
And getting killed, right? But the other sucky thing is that happening, and then the creature just being like, whatever, and walking away. And it's like, I hate both of these outcomes. Like, there's no way to make that feel good.
that happened in one of the most recent Critical Role episodes I watched, where this character just downs Chutney, who's a blood hunter, so he does have some HP on him, and just downs him in one turn.
Cosmic, I still have 30 on this list. I don't know. I assume it is. Go ahead, keep going.
Because they were a level 20 fighter, so they have 4 attacks, action surged, and just decimated Chutney, and just straight up killed Chutney.
Bummer. Spoilers!
That's kind of how Molly died.
That's how Molly died too, you're right.
Yeah. Well, it's not spoilers because they bring him back.
Gotcha.
And Molly, Molly also... The Blood Hunter has some gamble with it, right?
Yeah.
And Molly was kind of built into, to really play into the gambling nature of it. Molly kind of put himself in a position, gambled, and lost big.
Yep.
All right, Goblin Artificer with a mad scientist aesthetic.
So,
Cool.
Druid's character.
Kind of. A 15 for me.
15. Harpy Thief in tribal armor.
Okay, cool.
I read that and immediately whatever I read before that just went out of my head. Goblin. Got it. Goblin alchemist thingy.
Mad scientist.
Yeah.
Doc Brown, but as a goblin.
Oh, I was thinking of Young Frankenstein.
Oh, or that. Great Scott.
Great Scott, you're great, not. Whatever happened to epic rap battles of history? Did they get bad or just stop caring? Like, that's the question.
I stopped caring about them, so... Rap's never been something I enjoy anyway. So as much as I thought that their videos were very funny, I never really followed their channel that closely.
Considering both Blood Hunters got blitzed and CR, maybe they need a buff. Maybe. I like the Blood Hunter conceptually, and I've only ever had like 1 or 2 people actually play it. So more testing is required.
Well, the reason they got blitzed is because, one, they didn't listen to the GM, and 2, the character that got down was level 13 by a level 20 character.
That's true.
So,
Matt loves to just one-shot people because...
Yep.
It's good for the story.
Yeah.
Because you're encountering the big bad evil guy early, and you decided to fuck with them.
Yep.
I feel like it could have been a subclass. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel with the Blood Hunter as well, and Warlock. Like, which the 2 people I've had play Blood Hunters have both gotten Warlock subclasses, so it works out.
Did I?
I know. I think I gave you the option to it, and then we switched you around to be a different type of Blood Hunter.
Yes.
I think that's what it
Because
was.
there's like the Profane Soul Blood Hunter, which is sort of like a half Warlock.
Yeah. I mean,
which is not my favorite.
Yeah, the Blood Hunter works really well for a lycanthrope character.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, I also give them a little bit of like creature buff.
Mm-hmm. Because I really like the mutant one and the ghost hunter one.
I don't know if I've seen the mutant one.
The mutant one gives you access to like mutagens.
Oh, okay.
Basically,
Yeah.
come and all the mutagens have a buff and debuff at the same time.
Warlocks work well, but in the area of 5e where DM forgets short rests are a thing, it sucks. Yeah, I've never had that happen. Like, short rests are... I let people do it all the time.
Yeah. But I will like, let's be absolutely clear here. Does your GM not allow short rest, or does the party never say short rest? Because if you're waiting for the GM to prompt for a short rest, you're playing wrong.
I've also run into the opposite, where like there's a reason that Baldur's Gate only lets you have 2 in a day, right?
Yeah.
Because I've definitely had players that are just like, we fought a guy, short rest. Fought another short rest. It's like, okay, I obviously need to give you guys time limits, or this is going to get really weird really fast. Like,
also, like, do people not realize like short is an hour?
Yeah.
So you're just like wasting like 3 hours a day just doing nothing.
Yeah. So
that's what I'm saying.
Like, yeah, it's well, I didn't run very much 5e, so I never really had a lot of experience with this. But I always tried to have potential consequences in mind for when there was a short rest. Like if the party decided to take too long, or if they decided to try to short rest in a dangerous position, there are potential consequences, right? So
yeah. For the most part, oh my. I'll generally give people short rests, like, as a given. Like, hey, we want to take a short rest. It's like, okay, are you going to backtrack, or are you going to like barricade yourself in a room? Both are fine. Like, you have to do one of those 2 things.
Yeah.
And then sometimes that will reset things, or things will change. A good example of that is like, I had a whole bunch of people getting killed by kobolds, a group of kobolds, and they're like, we're going to lock this door and take a short rest. I'm like, great. And if nobody like succeeded in their perception checks while they were doing this, they basically like trapped the front door, because the kobolds are like, yep, we're going to get them this time.
Yeah.
Because the monsters are also getting that time, right? Like, that's really what you have to think about.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. And that's kind of what I meant by consequences. I don't mean like, I usually won't call in monsters to break up their short rest unless they choose to be particularly belligerent or stupid about where they're taking their short rest.
Yeah. At what CR or player class level can you be a warlock patron? Can you be a warlock patron? 20. Like, if you want to be a patron, like, you have to be able to give somebody power, right? So
Yep.
unless you're lying about it, which you could do at level 1, essentially you have to be, I don't know, 15 plus, because there's nothing mechanically that gives other people power, especially class powers.
Yeah.
In 3.5 there were situations where you could have an underling, and then that underling could take feats, but they're just certain levels below you. So there's an argument there to be made that if you started taking the feats for minions, you could technically give those people minion powers, but like, it's nowhere near as powerful as giving them warlock levels. So
Yeah.
you could make an argument for that, but otherwise, I don't know. I wouldn't do that normally.
I saw it done on one of the dropout campaigns, but it wasn't mechanical. It was just story-wise, and it was a like Feywild campaign.
That makes sense.
That's the only time I've seen it done, though, where
Yeah.
the player was the warlock patron.
Yeah. Mechanically,
That
there's
makes
no way to do it in game for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Like, I'm level
you would
5
have
and
to
I can
either-
give you level 5 powers. It's like, no.
No.
Nope.
No. Nope. Yeah, you would have to either build or find a mechanical system if you wanted to play with that in actual gameplay. If you're just talking about story wise, then yeah, I think Jump Rope's spot on. Go watch Dimension 20.
That being said, you could do something to the effect of, this is all bullshit. Let's say you are playing a warlock or a paladin or something, right? And you have something like the Green Lantern core lantern. And you're just like, okay, you want to join this? Great. Like, it's completely... And then that person just starts taking their own levels in it, right? Like...
Yeah.
Mechanically, it means nothing, because they're just getting their own powers. but thematically you can do that at any level, right? You're basically sharing whatever power you each have. That's all theatrical. Like there is no mechanical means for doing it that way. So, what do you think about the cocaine lock? I've only ever heard of it as the coffee lock, where you just like store up infinite spells. It's unnecessary and stupid. That's what I feel about it. Oh no.
Is he actually awake or just I picked him up and he was like still gone?
Totally asleep. Kid is totally asleep. Is an Eldritch MLM essentially? Yeah. At that point, you're just selling whatever it is you're selling, and the DM's like, sure, yep, that works for some reason, right? It would kind of be the equivalent of, like a cleric or a paladin bringing someone else into the order. The power, like mechanically, you can do that. Like just start taking levels in the same thing that I am. And you say that they're right. Whether or not the player has the power to actually do that is up to the DM and how that works. So
I think you could maybe make an argument that summoning potentially could work that way.
Sure.
So if
that would go back to the minion thing, yeah.
Yeah, but it's going back to basically the same thing as the minion. But like again, it's not really, the system is not really built for that.
Right. Yeah. At that point, the level doesn't matter. It's just best case scenario. You would be looking at something like the find familiar or the find minion, a skill which I think is almost always 2 levels below you, 2 or 3 levels below you. So you could just have someone start taking those feats, like just straight out of the book. It's like, hello, okay, I'm a level 5 elf fighter, and this is my level 3 warlock, level 2 minion, and yeah, we're best buds, right? Like so that's the only thing mechanically that you could give them would be the minion or familiar feats. I would say anybody could give those to another player. Why not? I wish you had your first level in Warlock. Pretty much, yeah. I was thinking the only way would be to cast a Wish spell. Yeah, but the Wish spell is exactly what we're talking about anyway. It's just homebrewing something from your DM, so it doesn't matter. That would be a mechanical way to do it. Greater Restoration, get rid of the exhaustion. Yeah, that's just cheesing the game, and I'm not a big fan of it. It's unnecessary, and it's exploitive. That's how I feel about the cocaine warlock. We're going to hold your soul as a collateral until you meet your quota of devil's bargains to give out this month. Yeah. You're going to need to supply your own warehousing for the souls. Also, you have to buy them first. MLMs are horrible.
They suck so hard. I hate them all.
I don't know if anybody can hear that. I'm not allowed to talk about it. We agreed.
Definitely heard some sort of vibration.
Alright, sorry to keep forgetting them. What are the prompts right now? A goblin alchemist? Mad scientist. Goblin mad scientist. And
a harpy. I don't think I got a class.
Rogue.
But
it was a rogue. Harpy rogue.
Oh, that's right. It was harpy rogue in primitive armor. Yeah, tribal.
Yeah, whatever tribal armor means.
I'm gonna take it as bone armor.
I like it.
Hide and bones and furs.
completely asleep. Oh. Oh.
Oh, dear.
Oh my. There we go. It's time for the baby squeak portion of the... Oh, now you're awake. Hello. You're making
Isn't
kissy faces.
consciousness interesting?
What is happening? Tiny Boo. Alright, Cute Cat. Watch the child. How dare you put this baby on me?
Is Skip Cat still stealing the
Oh yeah,
baby chair?
he sits on anything that this kid will sit on. I've figured out how to fix Pixel.
Oh, that's good.
Anytime Pixel like jumps into the crib or the bassinet, I just put the baby there, and then he's like, "How dare you!" and he leaves. It's like, yeah, that's right. It's not yours.
How rude.
Is it possible to make a stretchy character in D&D, something like Fantastic or Luffy? Yeah, absolutely. The Leshies actually have those abilities. My Leshie has like a 20-foot range right now.
Yeah, you could also play in either edition of Pathfinder a Gripply.
Yep, Gripply
They've got
has the tongue
a
attack.
They've got the tongue attack.
Mm-hmm.
Reach with the tongue.
Yep.
I loved it in first edition Pathfinder. I had my brother had a Gripply who's could deliver touch spells with his tongue.
Yep.
So he would heal at distance.
Super funny. I've had people do that as well. There is also the Bugbear. Bugbear have long arms.
Yep.
Which allows them to just get reach for not being a large-sized creature. So, like, there's definitely a lot of different means for doing that. I think the thing people miss for it is like, well, I want to stretch my arms across here and then do this super crazy anime attack. It's like, D&D is not really meant for that. Because D&D doesn't have, like, straight up attack moves. It would be something like you could use Smite, or you could use Power Attack, or you could use what's the other one? There was one that the Baldur's Gate 3 has a lot of them built in to like the weapons. They kind of added some cool little functionality to the weapons, so you can kind of rework those and then just flavor that you're stretching. That's really all you have to do.
Yeah.
Long distance grapple. Yeah, long distance grapple.
Entangled. I believe that's what that spell is called.
Yeah, Tangle works too. You could also use something like the Bramble. What the hell is it called? Shoot.
Thorn Whip?
Vine Whip? Is that what it's called?
Thorn Whip, I think.
Thorn Whip, yeah. Thorn Whip. Thorn Whip would work for an attack. You can also go all the way down to like Eldritch Blast once again being you can make it a force-based blast. So you just like, I stretch my arm out across the room and punch him in the face. It's like, that's a great use of Eldritch Blast.
Yeah, especially it'll work really well for like the Fathomless Warlock, which is kind of the sea Kraken Warlock.
All your black tentacle stuffs.
Yep.
Yep, I think there's definitely a way to do that.
You could also build a go to first edition Pathfinder and use the race creation templates to build like an ooze.
Yep.
And give them reach. I believe that there are options for racial points that give you a reach attack.
Yeah, if you want to go that way, you could do something like the pseudopod.
Yep.
You just get a pseudopod strike. Piccolo Strike, yeah. The Piccolo Strike would essentially be like a pseudopod. I think someone actually made an overhauled homebrew for One Piece in 5e. Same as Star Wars, Destiny, and a number of other things. Yeah, it happens all the time. Like that's the whole thing about tabletop RPGs is that you can just make up whatever you want as long as you use D&D as the base. Like that's the thing. Pathfinder has a race creation.
It is essentially a story modding platform, honestly.
Yep. Yeah, Pathfinder 1 has a pretty intricate system that's actually they stole from 3.5. So
yep.
Look at 3.5 Race Builder or Pathfinder 1 Race Builder, and there's a whole book for it. It's great. It also really helped me understand like why things are built the way they are. They have a thing called RP, which is race points, and basically not everything has to be balanced, but that's how you use it to figure things out. Kobolds, I think, are 4 or 6 RP, which is why they have like -4 to strength. Humans are, I believe, 10.
Yeah.
And then Drow.
Humans, elves, dwarves, I think we're all 10.
I think
Drow are like 23.
Elves and Drow or dwarves are, I think, 15. And then Drow are like 23 something. And then centaurs are like 30.
Yeah.
But like you look at that and you're like, oh, these races aren't balanced. But that's okay because like it lets you know what you're doing with it. Like you see how much it is overpowered because when you look at centaurs, not only are you being a quadruped, so you have bonuses to being tripped and stuff like that. You also have a different type of movement speed, which is another point-based system. You have a higher,
you're large size.
You're large size, so you have higher carrying capacity, stuff like that. Like you get natural attacks with your hooves. Like so, there's 5 or 6 things that just a regular human would not have. Period. So you can either take a human, and that's the point with the variant humans is they actually are slightly higher. Because like we need to buff them up a little bit, but with like the kobolds used to be the weakest creature race, period, and that was kind of their charm. Is like they kind of sucked. They had lots of negatives, but they had a lot of cool bonuses too with that. It just basically what they did is they gave them all these cool powers and then subtracted them by giving them a bunch of negatives, like sunlight sensitivity and being small and other things like that. So. 5e is the Skyrim of tabletop RPGs. People started straight up using it as an engine to make new games. 100%. I mean, that's just Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is the Skyrim of tabletop RPGs. So much so that Skyrim is based off of D&D. Like it uses the D&D 20 like the D20 system for stats. So I think Exalted has a bunch of anime style attacks where you get to stunts if you describe your actions a lot with flourishes. Yeah, it's the same thing with not the dancer. The swashbuckler. Swashbuckler is kind of the same way. You basically use an action to do something cool, like do something badass, and your DM's like, yeah, I'll give you panache for that. But a lot of that kind of stuff. Once again, it's like doesn't matter if you're Luffy, because you can say whatever you want. I do a triple backflip and I punch through a wall and I do this and that. And it's like, mechanically, what are you doing? I'm moving through my enemy square. Done. Right? Like, you can be as...
Roll acrobatics.
You can be as weird and creative as you want with it. At the end of the day, you have to find out what mechanically you are doing to make it fall into the system. And that's the thing that people struggle with the most, I think, when they're just learning how to play D&D and stuff. Because it very much is like, I want to run up there and I want to backflip, and I want to backflip, and then I'm going to stab him in the neck. But because I backflipped, he doesn't expect me to stab him in the neck. It's like, none of that makes any sense. Like, try to do a backflip and then roll an attack. I don't know what you want from me. Like, do you want a bonus? Do you want a bonus to your attack? Because that's 2 actions. I grab him, pick him up, suplex him off the level. It's like that's multiple steps. Multiple steps.
Yep.
The OGL allowed a bunch of creators a framework. Yeah, a bunch of creators a framework for making games and resulting in an explosion of design getting created with it. Yep. And that was 3.5. That was a big chunk of 3.5.
It's also one of the big reasons everyone loved 3.5 so much.
Yeah.
It's also one of the reasons 3.5 suffered so much from bloat.
Yep. Because there was a lot of third-party stuff that was kind of accepted as canonical, and it broke the game.
Yeah.
It broke the game really fast. narrative games like Powered by Apocalypse. Yeah, I mean that was kind of the whole point. Kind of the whole point is that they were the base systems that allow people to do stuff.
Yeah.
With them.
I was going to say, part of the reason why Exalted had those animation style stuff is it's a White Wolf game, which is much more. White Wolf games tend to be more narrative and flavor focused.
Yeah,
game.
And then if you go all the way to like Mage, Mage is purely narrative, right? There's almost no mechanical thing. It's just tell me the story of why you can do this, and you do it, which is great. Like that can be a lot of fun. Like that's something my friends and I used to do when we were younger, when we didn't have D&D books. It would just be like, okay, we would just basically tell a story and like, or write a comic book about it, just like one panel at a time. And they usually devolved until we fought each other. So like that's why rules are important. But I've done a dropkick stunning strike after a run up, but it was all action and it made sense as a monk. Yeah, and that stuff's totally fine, because like it's the same thing with. I'm totally fine with people playing a monk. I'm gonna do my flurry of blows, and it's just like 1,000 fists. Just it's like that's great. You get one attack roll, go for it. Now you get a second attack roll, roll your damage. Like whatever you want to flavor your stuff like is fine. You have to use the mechanical rules that are agreed upon. So doing a backflip, like that. Case in point, I want to run up, do a backflip, stab a guy. Tell you what, run up, roll me an acrobatics, and if you roll above a 15, I'll give you a reckless attack. Like I'll give you advantage on the attack, because great, right? Sometimes I won't do that, because otherwise, like you have to be able to balance it out. But in some situations, that kind of stuff can be really fun. Pathfinder has a lot more systems for that. What was the one? For Pathfinder First Edition, you could do a sleight of hand. If you succeeded in a sleight of hand, you could attack with at flat-footed. So that was a thing for ninjas.
Fainting mechanic.
The feint attack. That's what that is. That's exactly what that is. Not in 5e at all. Like it just doesn't exist. So, but those kind of things they work. They work out. You can find those things. You can make them up. Do what makes sense.
Yeah, when you boil it down, all of the flavor text really doesn't matter. And I mean, this is basically just me reiterating what you're saying. But the flavor text doesn't matter. You can substitute it in what you want. The thing that matters in terms of keeping the game running, and you not like breaking encounters, is the actual game mechanics, the rules, how the action economy works, basically.
We were talking with OKSDM for his Sagas build, which if you guys haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. I'm doing a lot of art for them.
A lot of fun to play.
Really fun to play. Very simple. Something we ran into while we were building our characters is they had like I think it was like a ranged whip attack or something. And I'm like, this is the only ranged attack you have. He's like, yeah, we need to add something like laser blast. I'm like, why not just have ranged attack? Like just completely distill it down to ranged attack. Have ranged attack as one of your options, and then you can flavor it however you want. Like there's like just build the base core mechanic for a ranged attack versus a melee attack versus like a heavy melee attack, right? And then it works really well for Sagas, because Sagas is an agnostic game system. So you're supposed to skin it to what you want. Like they've done things like, I think they did a One Piece run. We played a Legend of Zelda one shot with them.
Yep. It was a lot of fun.
If the mechanics are simple enough, which is what the beauty of 5e was supposed to be, you can easily change it. The problem that 5e has is they made it so simple that people wanted more and then felt like they had to build their own systems. And it's like, you don't have to. Just reskin it. Like, I don't want to shoot an ice bolt or a fireball. It's like, call it something else. Like, there's nothing wrong with calling it something else. So, you can disarm someone with a roll, but you cannot take a weapon, load a special ammo in, and unload it in their face all in one turn. You're lucky if you can get them to disarm and grab the weapon. Yeah.
Correct.
Which I think is really funny. I had one situation where someone tried to like steal a weapon from somebody, and then on their turn they just stole it back, and it just became this like slap fight, like just keep going back and forth.
Well, give it here.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I feel like it should be. And then if someone does fail it, then you get to reload and shoot them in the face. So it works out. It works out really well.
Yeah. So like I've always thought this, and I've always thought this, but like TTRPGs are basically it's 5-year-olds playing house, but for adults, and with rules and clicky clacky math rocks to prevent the whole thing devolving into nah yaha nah yaha nah yaha. So like it's just like that's what the rules are there for.
Yeah, the rules are there to mitigate. And a few people have talked to me about DM-less games, which really in my mind is just multiple DM'd games, like where the DM gets to play with you, because you still have to have somebody that knows the rules enough to like lay them down, right? And that's fine. You can do a lot of stuff with that. To be fair, 5e isn't the most flexible system. It isn't easy to get certain styles of play without overhauling. I feel like I constantly have to re-say this. 5e is insanely simple. It's to be flexible. That's the thing. You're allowed to overhaul. You're supposed to overhaul. You're supposed to you're supposed to be able to do whatever you want with it. The problem is that there are gaps. That's the real things that people think it's not flexible because there are gaps. Like the crafting system or like ship-to-ship combat. All of those existed in 3.5. Like they were entire books for that, and it made the game so complicated that people got frustrated with it. There were a handful of people that love that, myself included. I love those things. So the thing with 5e is those 3.5 books still exist. Go grab one of those books, and it fixes the problem. And 5e is pretty easy to mod from 3.5. Like it's very, very close, especially when it comes down to like turn-based economy. It's really similar. The numbers are the things that are slightly wrong. So like you can't just take a DC from a spell verbatim. Usually you have to look at it and decide what you're doing with it. But it's pretty easy to figure out because most DCs in 5e are just 8 plus a stat or 8 plus a level plus a stat.
Whereas I think 3.5 in Pathfinder is usually 10 plus a level plus a stat.
Yeah. So things are scaled a little higher because armor scaled a little differently and items scaled a little different in 3.5. So everything was a little bit higher. But for the most part, like attacks, features, feats, they're all pretty similar. Like it's very a rare occasion that I try something from 3.5 and 5e and it feels just way too overpowered. And in that situation, it's just like, oh, we're just going to turn it down a little bit. So I've never had a problem with it. I got one more here. Rolled what did I roll? 13. A pure blood Yonti, short hair, scales on his arms, chronomancer. Staff made out of gears and clock pieces. Big coat, lots of gears. Are we just talking while Rook is drawing? Essentially, yeah, Douglas. That's kind of how this works.
Yeah.
I argue that the system should be more in depth. That's it. Once again, talking in circles. It's 5th edition is just designed to be simple for people to be introduced to D&D. If you want a more complex system, go play 3.5. Like you're not losing anything. Go play 3.5 and keep all your 5e stuff. Like it's absolutely the same game. I think the restrictions and like frustrations people have are self-imposed. If you are playing if you're playing Adventure League, then yes, I'm sorry, it is that simple. You're stuck with it because that's a competitive way of play. But for most people playing their own games, it's very much, if it's not the game, if you're not enjoying the game, DM it yourself and do it the way you want.
Yep.
That's weird. When did that break?
If 3.5 turns out to be too much to you, or too much for you, go to Pathfinder.
Yeah. Pathfinder's super fun.
If you need a bunch of new stuff, try 2nd edition Pathfinder.
What's your favorite drawing of a D&D character, Rook? I mean, I love all of
Wayne Reynolds.
Wayne Reynolds stuff. Or do you mean something I've drawn? Because I like my plant folk monks. Those are really good. Trying to think what's the thing I have the most of. Warforged are really good. I really like those.
I love your Warforged.
Yeah. Do you think a grung could jump over an enemy? Yeah. There's rules for that.
Just an acrobatics check.
Just an acrobatics
costs
check,
your
yeah.
movement.
There is something else to be said about character diversity. Like, rolling a natural 20 on a jump for a grung, I would let them jump much higher than I would, say, a Goliath.
Yeah.
Like, I'll think about that kind of stuff. Like, if you're a large-sized Goliath and you want to pick up a character, I'm not going to make you roll. It's just like, yeah, you're done. You're like, you did it. But if you're like a grung barbarian with a 15 strength, it's like, yeah, I'm going to make you roll. I'm going to make you roll for it. Just because you're the same size as this person. You're probably still going to be able to do it. It's going to be a really low DC, but like, I'll let those things kind of slide. But that makes sense, right? I mean, like, that's kind of what I'm talking about. There's no mechanical reason for that to be, but that kind of stuff is just, it's kind of inherent, and your DM has the final say.
Intuitive.
Yeah, and let your DM will be the one to decide that. My argument is, Matt Mercer will always say, you can always try. Right. Can I do this? You can always try. I love that principle, but I'll generally tell people, like, make me an argument. Like, tell me why you think you should be able to do this. Or how are we going to do this? Like, let's try to figure out a way for you to do the thing you want to do. It's like, I want to suplex that guy off the level. It's like, cool. Succeed in a grapple check this round. He won't escape on his turn. If he doesn't escape on his turn, then I will let you use your turn to suplex him off the cliff. Totally fine with that.
Yep.
That's my I don't want to say my caveat, but like, you've made an argument. Here's what I will require you to do. Right. I think I should be able to do it in one turn. It's like, well, why? Like, really, make me the argument. Let me know why you think you should be able to do that. I can't remember what I was supposed to be drawing right now. Yanti.
That's right.
Yanti, Time Wizard.
Yanties.
I don't know, Reinhardt? The other fun thing that's kind of missing for 5e is alternate race traits, which was something that the 3.5 and Pathfinder 1 did a ton of. And what they would do is you would look at something like the Grung, and one of the options would be like, instead of being a poison dart frog, you're really good at jumping. And they would give you that feature. Like, you jump twice as high as you would think you normally could. Just straight up. But that's a trade-off, right? Like, that's the thing that I think is missing from 5e. Is that because 5e basically said, okay, no negatives. Like, there are no negatives in this game. You just get a +2 to something and a +1 to something. Instead of what used to be was, if you got a +2, you got a -1 to something. If you got a +4, you got a -2 to something, right? And they're like, no more negatives. We're gonna drop everything down. No more negatives. No more trade-offs. It just is this thing. So, you have a concert on Friday. Like, are you playing in or you're going to? Always thought Against the Cult of the Reptile God should be rewritten to use Yanti. Is it not? Did the Yanti exist after that? I thought that was... I really thought that was the same thing.
I'm really happy with this sketch. This drawing kind of fell into place for me.
That's good.
Felt
Some
really
gives
nice
play
because
too
I
bad.
really
Nice.
struggled with the shark.
I'm sorry. They both look really good. So
Thanks. I'm happy where the shark ended up. I was just frustrated getting there.
it used a Naga and a Troglodyte. Oh, okay, yeah. The Naga became the Yonti. The Yonti are really more equivalent to I want to say like were snakes.
Yeah.
They're more closely related to a were snake or a drider than
Yeah.
the Naga. The Naga are very much snake folk. Like
Yeah.
you could make an argument for a Naga just being a specialized lizard folk. Like
Mm-hmm.
so
Because the lore for the Yonti is they were humans who turned themselves into snake folk,
Yeah.
basically.
So yeah, so I could see that being the curse of the bless you the cultist thing for the snake god or whatever. That would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely see that, and I would probably add that in if I ran that.
Praise Dindar.
The Naga are just snakes with humanoid faces.
Yeah, in 5e and in Pathfinder.
Do people realize that
Maybe
5e stands for 5th edition?
Yes.
There have been many editions of D&D. You know what? I think a lot of things would be solved if people went and played 4th edition. Like, everybody that's got a complaint about 5th edition should just play 4th edition once. And they will either love it and never play anything else, or, like, crawl back with their tail between their legs, being like, I'm so sorry, 5th edition,
sorry.
I love you.
I want to play at least like a one-shot in 4e, just to experience. I've never got to experience it.
A one-shot will probably take 2 weeks. People didn't know that it was standard for 5th edition, that there were 4 other editions of D&D. Technically more than that, but
Oh yeah.
that's semantic and I don't care.
It's just that whenever people say D&D, they basically are referring to the current edition.
Sometimes seems like people forget Crit Role Style 5e isn't the only tabletop RPG in existence. Only smugly insists it shouldn't be. The funniest thing about Critical Role is that Critical Role their first season was Pathfinder.
Pathfinder. Yeah.
They played 5e, but they initially were playing a Pathfinder game, and then
They had to convert it into
Yeah.
5th edition.
WotC
Yeah.
asked them to convert it over, and so they did. But that's why you have a gunslinger, and you have a very spicy barbarian.
Yep. Yeah, Grog is Pathfinder min-maxed, not 5e min-maxed.
Yep. I would even say Scanlan, like, I think that's one of the reasons he's a very blasty, like, blaster caster
Yeah.
bard, is because he's a Pathfinder bard.
Yeah.
I don't know,
And
because
that's why Trinket is so useless.
well, no, that's because it's the first version of the
Well,
base companion.
the Pathfinder 1 Rangers are pretty good. The companions are really
Yeah.
really good because they level up. They have feats and stuff.
Yeah. I would argue, like, the reason probably why Scanlan was so blastery, and even then, he didn't have a lot of blasting spells. I remember him using, like, Lightning Bolt a couple times.
Yeah, you use Lightning Bolt mostly, which is very much a bard spell for first edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
I think what we saw of Scanlan, I think you're right. He didn't have a lot of blaster caster spells, but I agree with Rook. Early on, Scanlan very much felt like he was trying to do more like blaster combat stuff more than support stuff.
Yeah. Which I would argue 5e bards can do, especially since Scanlan was the College of Lore
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
bard, which gives you just more versatile spells options.
Oh, 5e bards are great. Nothing against them.
Yeah.
They're great jacks of all trades.
I love the inspiration thing. I think it's probably one of my favorite mechanics in 5e.
Drag, I have no idea what that word is. Technically, 5e doesn't stand for 5th edition. I would argue otherwise. Doesn't use it in any capacity by WotC or Hasbro. So they just call it Dungeons and Dragons. Is that what they did for 5th edition? I'm pretty sure it says 5th edition on the
on the book.
Yeah, it is 5th edition.
That's,
Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
That's not the issue. That's on the edition of the publication. That's the edition of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's again only like the edition of WotC's Dungeons and Dragons.
It's the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. Interesting. Interesting. What are you guys' favorite subclasses out of pure curiosity? I play a lot of clerics and or fighters. So Eldritch Knight is pretty great. And with the cleric, I really like going like School of Knowledge because it gives you a little bit of spells. So I like subclasses that give you a little bit of magic. That's generally what I do. So you can have a really cool like tight melee character and then give them a little bit of magical oomph.
I actually never liked the subclass system, at least not as done by 5e. And this is I think, Corvus, where you and my like the types of games we like to play. I think this is where we really differ. I much prefer a more loose system where I get to choose more of the kind of subclass options rather than having a list handed to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Corvus is the same reason you probably don't like World of Warcraft either. Because, like, that's why old Warcraft was
No,
amazing.
I don't like it because I can't play it.
Oh.
Because it costs money.
I could probably get you into
I don't like it.
I could get you into a free server if you want.
It's fine.
But, no, it's like, old WoW was very much like derivative of Diablo 2. Where it's just like billions of choices. Do whatever the hell you want. Screw everything up. Be bad. Like, that was my favorite thing. Just like, be bad.
Like, my experience with that comes in from Path of Exile, the first one. Where it's just like this massive web of choices that it's too many options, and I can't handle that. I want a nice, thematic, well worked out subclass for me to work towards. That's why I love all the archetype stuff in 1E, Pathfinder, and 5E. Because it's just, ooh, I like this. I'm going to work towards it.
Yeah. You're right. And they kind of got rid of that.
Loose.
Which, I like, yeah, Drew and I think, are on the same page. Of, like, I very much appreciate that. Because that was a problem I had with all this prestige classes, is like, it kind of locked you in really early on for something you weren't going to get for a very long time. And I was just like, meh.
You got no payoff.
Yeah.
Well, for me, when I mean like 1E's archetypes, I mean like when you look at classes, scroll down to the bottom of the list, and there's like a list of like things that you can sub out from your main class and gets put in.
No, those are
that's what I like.
That's what I'm missing from 5e for the most part. There's like favorite classes and archetypal builds where you would be like a homunculus alchemist instead of a mutant genetic alchemist. And a lot of those it's just more. It's more stuff, which D&D, like I said, they just got rid of it. They got rid of all of it. Like there are 3 options. Pick one of these 3 options. And now I think there's 5 or 6 per class on average.
For like wizards and clerics.
Yeah. Because they keep adding
like
1
20.
or 2 more. Yeah. Okay, so Legend, you're talking about the semantics of 5e being a legal term other people use. Cool.
We don't care about legal terms.
I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. You want to be like GURPS, Shadowrun, World of Darkness, where as long as you have the points, you can buy it, and it works best. Yeah, what was it? I actually need to send... I have a link for you, you and Druid, because Indestructible Boy was saying he wanted to run a campaign for us for his game system, which I'm blanking on right now, which is awful.
Oh,
Not Vanguard. Vagabond?
Vagabond, yeah, there we go.
that's right.
Yeah, so he's getting really close to being done with that too, which is very much
Awesome.
it's more of a system like that where you kind of buy whatever you want. I think, maybe not. No, there's a different class system for that. I might be conflicting two different things. I'll have to look it up again. But yeah, GURPS is a definitely. Oh my, that is a spicy baby.
My thing about like prestige classes, and I guess this kind of goes into like way they do it for 2E now, where they're referred to as archetypes, which is just confusing for me because when I think of archetype, I think more of like a subclass or like a focus build for a base class.
Yeah, for me, the term subclass is diversity, like splitting something up. So you'd have a, and that might be because of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 11 was very much you play a fighter and then you subclass or get a sub job that is another job that you're adding onto it. So it's not so much like a multi-class because you're picking one or the other. You're adding something to it. And so with archetypes, I always feel like you are, especially for Pathfinder, it's like I'm becoming a Dragon Disciple, which is staying a sorcerer but adding barbarian feats into it.
Yeah, and that I don't really care for in that regard.
Okay.
Like, because but also a lot of the prestige classes in 1E were kind of just bad. I was like,
Yes.
I was like, this
Arcane
seems
Archer.
flavorly, seems great, but when you like, and not even talking from like min-maxing point of view, it's too much stuff to like spec into to get like very minimal return of like.
And I think
anything.
I think part of the reason for that is a lot of the archetypes were really built to justify the GMs doing something weird with a character. So like if you're writing an espionage game, you kind of want an NPC that is a spy. Like,
Yeah.
the players aren't really supposed to pick that. They absolutely can, because that's the thing with Pathfinders. They're like, if we make it, let the players use it. Like, it's like play any race you want, make a race you want to play. But because of that, there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't feel right because it was designed for a specific character in a specific campaign, and then they released it for players, and it's like, yeah. This kind of sucks. like this is only good if you start at level 17. It's like, well, that's because the character that it was designed for was level 17. Like, so.
Because I remember you were talking, and it's not so much a prestige class, but it's just like a feat tree, like the dimensional dervish thing, and it's just like, this just seems way too much.
Yeah, and Matt Mercer, like, basically took that concept and made the Echo Knight. He's like,
Yep.
this should be how the dimensional dervish works. And he fleshed it out so that it became a whole thing. And I think I played one character as an Echo Knight. And
My
it works.
half-orc in your Ashfont campaign was supposed to be an Echo Knight,
Okay.
but
Didn't really play it,
yeah, never got to the point where I could even use any of my abilities.
Yep. Which is all right. And I think that's a kind of a good example of the option is there, but like it's never really been a playable option. It just never has been, because you just can't get it to work.
Because like, out of the different prestige classes in Pathfinder First Edition, hear people talk about Dragon Disciple, fan favorite.
It's so good. It's a melee fighter. It's one of the quintessential not just dragon based, like melee spellcasters with dragon flavoring. So it's great from a couple different angles. The only other one in Pathfinder really is the Blood Rager and the Magus, and both of those feel weird. Like the Blood Rager's great, but like the magic kind of conflicts with its barbarian side too much.
Yeah,
and so it struggles. It struggles. And then the Magus is really fun, but it's more magic oriented than melee. It's like, what if I poked people with a fireball? It's like, yeah, that's cool, but like, I want to fireball people with my sword. And there's like, that's the difference. Like, it's very small. It's a very, very small.
Yeah.
So, Dragon Disciple though is just like, I want to cover myself in fire and punch you to death. It's like, neat. Like, let's do that. So really fun.
With
really
dragon
fun
claws.
Yeah. Dragon claws, dragon bites,
like,
dragon wings.
And then there's like these two other ones that they came out super late, and so they're actually probably more balanced to be like worked in with a normal class than others, where it's like you either have to pick this or pick your normal class. You can't pick either or. Some of them, like, if you just keep specking into your prestige class, you actually get benefits in your base class.
Right.
It doesn't apply to all the prestige classes.
So that was the
Except for a
problem
few.
with the prestige classes, is it was a way to kind of counteract multiclassing, because oddly enough, Pathfinder does not like multiclassing.
Yep.
And part of that is to negate the warlock issue, right? Like, it's just
Yeah.
like there's no reason not to dig into to tech into warlock, because it's just all bonuses. And so with Pathfinder, once you take another level, you don't get the bonuses of being a higher level as a cleric, say. So you're basically trapped at a level 5 cleric unless you put more points into it. The prestige classes would say, okay, we'll give you some of those levels back. So if you take this, you're still getting the level 6 cleric, but we're giving you a muted version of the barbarian. And that worked. And so that's what the prestige classes were built. They were basically fine-tuned multi-class. They're like, yeah, lots of people like this as an idea. Let's fine-tune it and build it. So here are all the prerequisites for you to take from cleric to barbarian, and now you're a battle priest, right? And you go. And for the most part, that worked. Except when there were things like I said, like the spy just didn't really bring anything that a regular rogue didn't bring. There were a couple like necromancer ones that were really like, oh, this is great, you should do this as a cleric. But it's like, I don't want to put points in cleric. I want to just put points in sorcerer and do that. They're like, you can do that, but it sucks. So like, those are kind of the problems with it.
Yeah.
But there were still ways to fiddle with it, and it worked out pretty well in most situations.
Yeah. Like, the ones I was thinking of is the, like, on the SRD, it's called the Forest Warden.
Okay. I haven't looked at that one.
Yeah, me neither.
And it's honestly very much meant to be like for the ranger or the hunter class.
Okay.
Which is the weird druid ranger hybrid class. And
Yeah.
and like, as you take levels in your prestige class, you also get levels in your base class.
Yes. And that's kind of what I was saying. Like,
Yeah.
because like for the Dragon Disciple, like the prerequisites are you can cast arcane spells and you have the draconic bloodline. So it doesn't matter. So like you could take a feat as like a barbarian to get both of these two things, and then just be like you can come from really weird angles if you decide to meet those prerequisites other ways. There's even some races will give you certain abilities, so you're like, okay, I can do this earlier, 3 levels earlier, so long as I'm like a harpy. I'm going to be a harpy, which is going to give me this ability, and then I can do that earlier. So like, there's a lot of little things that fiddled with that, and if you weren't a cleric, it just sucked, right? So like, they were built to try to correct that, and second edition very much does so. But they want to make sure you're also maintaining that this was a cleric to begin with. This is a cleric build. You're not just cheesing something else. Hold on, let me catch up on chat real quick. Wait, any race, including like dragons and stuff? Yeah, you can play dragons in 3.5 and Pathfinder.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You can
Everyone
play
was a
half
dragon.
dragons. Yeah.
Yep, dragons, half dragons, baby dragons, ancient dragons. It works out. What is your opinion on the goddess of the good drow? Oh yeah, Elistre. Illustra. I can't remember how to say her name.
Illustrahi.
It's great. It's good. It's fun. Like I think that's 100% a good addition to the game. Like once again, all of the races are written from the perspective of the person telling the story in the adventure. So in the adventure path. So for the book, they're all written in a way that makes sense for the adventure path, but that doesn't mean that that's how you have to play them, like, and should play them. It's too short-sighted. Harpies are awesome. Yeah, harpies look great. Drew's harpy looks great. The tattoos are a good touch.
Thank you. I decided that I didn't want to draw start a new character. So what can I add? Tats.
It's also like a proven fact, like Volo from Volo's Guide is a unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Several times. So just
did you say
ignore
raging
anything he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
The dude is a bard.
Battlezoo released a whole dungeon race for PF2, actually. Yeah. They're not the first people either. Like, go check out my Why You Should Play the Dragon video. It's great. I think I was talking about Dragonborn, but like, I make an argument to just play a dragon. Like, there's nothing wrong with playing a dragon. It's really fun.
Nate, tell you why you shouldn't play a dragon.
I could do that. But no, if you want to play a dragon, essentially you're starting the game at like level 3 as a young dragon, I think. Just take everything out of the book and then start going with whatever you want. You're not gonna grow up at a speed at which it matters. Like, you're not gonna start as a baby dragon and then be an ancient dragon by the time you hit level 20. That's not how that works. You're always going to be a baby dragon.
I mean, unless everybody else in the party is an elf or a similarly long-lived race, and you take 10 years off between everything that happens.
That could be really fun. Yeah, just pick a regular dragon and make use of your polymorph spell and just roll with it. You're probably not going to take any points in classes because you get all the sweet dragon feats. And just have fun with it. It's gonna be great. But a level 1 barbarian, level like 12 dragon would be really funny. I'd be totally down with that. What about tech warlocks? Just joined in. Hey Gamma. Nothing wrong with tech warlocks. They follow the exact same mechanics as the game, just like artificers do. It's just use the magic and flavor it however you want. I throw gears at people. Taser.
Yeah, there's like already the Clockwork Souls for sure.
Yeah, Clockwork Soul. Exactly. I need to finish fleshing out my opossum folk race. That could be fun. There should be. I think there's one or two of them I've seen online that have been pretty cute. Also hope all's well on y'all's side. Hope things are adjusting well with the hashtag. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. They're in feed me until I'm gonna scream till you feed me, and then after feeding I'm gonna scream till I fall asleep. And it's fine. I played a dragon in several Palladium games. It's great. Yeah. Packed of emotion.
Looking forward to the new book that comes out this month, the Hall of the Wild. Then I can make a opossum character.
Nice.
An awakened possum.
You could do that right now if you wanted.
Yeah, but I would rather
in second
not have
edition
to put in the work.
They are coming out with a heritage for awakened creatures. So.
Oh, okay. Yep. Cool.
I'd rather wait for someone else to put the work in instead of me.
That is totally fine.
I'm lazy.
Summoners are wild or weird in Pathfinder First Edition. Summoners are weird in Second Edition too. Summoners are just generally weird.
I love the summoner. I want to play a summoner. It terrifies me to no end.
Oh, it's the biggest thing I can suggest to people that want to play a summoner is spreadsheets. Just open up a Google Doc or a Google Sheet and just save everything you want. Make a character sheet for your character. Write down all their spells. Like, it's super complicated, but really, really rewarding if you do it right.
Yeah, especially now in terms of spells, because in 2E, they're spontaneous casters. I don't know if they were in First Edition.
I believe so.
Pathfinder.
Yes.
But they have limited spell casting, which means they have the bonded spell casting thing. So they lose spells as they level up, and it's just like it kind of messes with my brain.
I'll have to look that up because the way it's always read to me is you don't lose spells, you transfer them to your summoner. So like I can cast 10 spells and I can cast 4 spells, and they just hold those spells for you, so you can pick other things.
Oh no, that's not how it works anymore.
Okay, I'll have to look that up then, because I haven't looked at it much. But yeah, the biggest thing the problem that the summoners had in 3.5 and Pathfinder is action economy. They're essentially a fifth party member.
Yeah.
And so trying to find a way to balance that has always been hard. And 5th edition just said, fuck it, no. Like, you're just not going to do it. And so they're like, what if all summoned creatures were just ethereal garbage and didn't do anything? You're like, cool. So it's mage hand. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's a mage hand. It's a permanent mage hand. Good job.
And then 2nd edition Pathfinder fixed it by saying, okay, well, actually, let's just change the action economy. 3 actions per
and
round.
Even with that, what they did is they said, okay, everyone gets 3 actions, unless you're a summoner, in which case you have to give up this one to give this one 2. You still technically get 4. You still technically get 4. Yeah. Very powerful. Good stuff. Like,
and yeah, it said 4th action can only be used for either striding or striking.
Yeah, it's essentially supposed to be, on my turn, I command my pet to move and attack. Like, that's what it's for, right? You're using one action to control your pet. Because in older editions, like Pathfinder 1st edition, I take my turn, I summon 4 badgers. Those 4 badgers each have their own initial initiative and get placed wherever they go, and then I have to place them. Oh, I hope someone brought the stats for them, because they're a little weird. Also, I'm a skeletal summoner, so they also have the skeleton stat on top of all of their characters. I hope you brought the variant for that as well. So it got real messy real fast.
Yeah.
Especially when you got to the point where you're like, okay, am I going to summon 1 level 5 badger or 5 level 1 badgers? Who brought the stat sheet for the level 1 badgers? Spreadsheets. You just nothing but spreadsheets.
Yep. So like when I ran 1st edition Pathfinder, I was very much like, okay, so it's gonna be vanilla unless you do all of the work.
Yep.
We're gonna, yeah. You want to play a summoner? You want to use summon spells? I'm totally fine with that, but you have to know your shit.
Kevin the Necromancer was really good about that, and that's why I allowed him to have like bloodied Tyrannosaurus summons. Like, he's like, I want that creature that I just fought. I'm going to res it as a skeleton. I'm like, great, take it. There's a thing online that will convert it into a skeleton for you. Print that out, and now you have that as a creature. I'm not going to track it at this point. You have to keep track of all that shit. And he did. So at one point, they killed a Triceratops, and he resed it, and then he gave it the bloody skeleton features because that was an option. And so he had a Triceratops that could regenerate. An undead Triceratops, a bloody undead Triceratops. It was awesome.
Terrifying.
I will say, in 5e, with the later summon subclasses, so like with like the Wildfire Druid, with their Wildfire, they very much cleaned up the rules on those aspects, which technically the rules, like, for some reason people don't want to go back and apply those rules to other summoned creatures for some reason, but it's like, just do it. It saves so much heartache and headaches.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
when you summon, say, creature, its turn is immediately after yours.
Yep.
Period.
And that's
no
how
rolling initiative.
that's actually how, like, with Kevin playing at one point in time, he had like 32 skeletons, which we only ever did once, and that was basically how we ruled it. It's like, if you summon something, it goes immediately after you, and it's linked to your turn. It just is.
Yeah, that's how I usually did it too.
It's so much smarter to do it that way. And then we got to a point where he had so many things that his turns were taking like 20, 30 minutes. We started consolidating them. It's just like, if you can summon 5 skeletons, I will let you summon 1 bigger skeleton, just to make the game not suck. Like,
yeah.
And so that's what we did. And it worked out really well. I thought harpies had wing arms. Is that not always the case?
In traditional Greek mythology, yes, that's usually how they're depicted. I do it this way.
They also have very ugly faces and like 10 boobs. So
yep,
just depends.
I went for the sexy version.
It really depends on the harpy. Shows how I like them personally. Yeah, I like the Strix, which are supposed to be like owl harpies.
Same.
They have arms. They have arms and legs. So Simultaneous actions. Yeah, I like simultaneous actions. And the other thing, after playing Baldur's Gate, I'm becoming a big fan of simultaneous player actions, to where if there's like an enemy and then 2 players and then another enemy, I don't care who goes first. It's just like, cool, you 2 are up. Like, what are you going to do? Because you're going, and then it'll go back into like the rest of the party, you know? So as long as you're clumped in between enemies, I will let these people play in any order they want. And I think that makes the game a little more fluid. But I'll also let monsters do that. So if there's a few monsters, these 3 monsters are going to act in tandem. And just, I'll decide who goes what where. So it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right, I think I'm done. It's 2:30.
Okay.
I think we did a good job. We have a bunch left, but we got through a good chunk of them. We'll be back on Friday, I think. Pretty sure. And yeah. You either are stuck with only the highest initiative mattering or no initiative. If you're not first, you're last. Is that what you're thinking? It happens. Thanks again, everybody, for hanging out. Let's see if there's anybody online. Anybody around for a raid?
Yeah. Hey, Elliot, Canada, you wanna see Yuan-Ti be played? First edition Pathfinder. Look at the Nagaji, Nagaji. Honestly, I feel like you could port it directly into 5e. I think it's a 15 racial point brace. Anyway, it's pretty cool.
Is anybody on Twitch right now?
Reflavor the way it looks.
Twitch or YouTube would be really mad if I send everybody to a Twitch stream.
Oh yeah, they'd be furious.
That would be really funny.
You trying to get this video demonetized? I was very good. I didn't kill any animals by impaling them on spears this time.
Yeah. I think that's the only live stream we've ever gotten demonetized. No. All right. Yeah. Oh well. All right. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Stay happy, stay healthy, keep your ass at the table. We'll see everybody on Friday. I might do a secret stream tomorrow for the Patreon members to get a secret, like a viewer suggestion. So if you are a Patreon member, jump in the Discord and tell me what you want me to draw. We'll do that. I'll probably do that tomorrow, I think. Might be a short stream, but it's a secret stream, so that's fine. So other than that, that's all I got. Bye, everybody.
Bye.